Over to Paul Gayton from Wren Accountancy to introduce the session today.
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you also to Jazz and Angela for helping us put this webinar on, and to Billy Shaw from Rotheras as well, who's going to be speaking later on. Webinars on Zoom was not a thing that we'd ever done before this whole thing started. We were used to doing it on a face-to-face basis in hotels and conference rooms. This will now be the 6th webinar we've done for clients since the whole thing started, on a variety of different topics, some focusing on the government support and the other things, and some focusing on things like QuickBooks and getting efficiencies done in this. Now, obviously, we're starting to come out of the pandemic, the lockdown slowly being relaxed, and it's very important that we're all working on our business and making sure that when things start to change, we're ready for the new world which we'll be emerging into, and the business opportunities that there'll be in there. Things will be different. People have got used to using things like Zoom. I think there's going to be some really good things that will have come out of it, but there's going to be quite a lot of changes and opportunities for people to exploit. So today is really about trying to get your business ready for that. And Jazz has got some great tips and ideas. Also, Billy's going to be speaking to us later about terms and conditions with your customers, and also your suppliers, and about how it's important to have those right as well. And this is a good opportunity now, if you're not so busy, to be reviewing things like that. So be mindful of those sort of things. Keep your eyes and ears open for all these new opportunities and things that can help you and your business to move forward. So again, thank you for attending this morning, and I'll hand back over to Jazz for the webinar itself.
Thank you very much indeed, Paul, and good morning everybody. I will go through my housekeeping first, if I may. First and foremost, folks, can you refrain from any of the chat? What we're going to do is we're going to take questions from anyone about anything at the end. If you keep on firing chats, it's going to be incredibly distracting for everybody, so please get a pen and paper and write down absolutely as many questions as you want. I'm here for as long as you need. I'm sure Paul and Billy will be giving their time as well at the end to answer anything that you may have. The thing I'm at pains to stress as well today is I'm just going to scratch the surface with the stuff that I do. You're only going to get, in this short space of time we've got today, just a high level overview, but I hope and pray that that's going to give you more than enough to be able to get on with before the new normal begins. We're going to have a break approximately 10 a.m. I would strongly suggest that everybody stays logged in at that stage while they go and stretch their legs and get a comfort break and get a cuppa, etc. If we run over, I'm going to apologise. This is a very fast-moving situation with regards to how I do these webinars. 2 months ago, I was doing them all about what we've got to do emergency-wise. Now it's very much transitioning back to the normal webinar seminars that I used to do, where we're going to give you hints and tips on what you can do to grow your business. If the system crashes, because it's been known to crash, do me a favour, folks. Firstly, accept my apologies. Give me 2 minutes, let me reboot everything, and then log back in again. It has been known to happen. And at the end, we're going to be sending you a SurveyMonkey link, which I'm going to ask you right now as your coach to ensure that you fill out. It's okay saying I'm going to do it and then not doing it. That's not what coaching is about. Coaching is about accountability. So I'll be mentioning that a few times during the course of today, because we want to know how we can add more value. We want to be able to, reward your valuable time, and I can't do that without any feedback. So without further ado, let's kick off. A little bit about myself. So prior to starting the business, I spent a lot of time working for other people, working for some really good managers and some not so good managers, and all the time learning. And when I was 23, I was given a fabulous opportunity by my cousin up in Scotland. He wanted me to come and run his bar restaurant on the outskirts of Glasgow. And my cousin, bless him, he thought that I was qualified to do this. He thought that my 6 weeks experience clearing tables in his restaurant one summer, trying to clear some university debts, qualified me to run his business. Now, the business was a fair-sized business. In the mid-90s, we had about 35 members of the team, full and part-time, and we turned over about £700,000. And listen, I jumped at that opportunity. It was going to be a fabulous opportunity straight out of university. but with no experience running a business, let alone managing people. But I jumped in with both feet, with that youthful abundance of joy and enthusiasm that you have when you're 23. And if anyone hasn't reached 23 yet that's on the webinar, that's still to come for you, don't worry. But I made mistakes. I made some absolute humdinging mistakes. I made new ones every single day. But when I look back on my career, on my development, whenever I'm having a moment to reflect, there's always one correlation I always seem to see, and that is that I always grew the most when I made the most mistakes. Because I believe there was a lot of people that associate mistakes, have a negative connotation associated with the word mistakes. But mistakes are absolutely fine, because we are a direct reflection of our business. And if we're not growing, then neither is our business. And mistakes for me mean that maybe we're trying to do something new, maybe we're trying to grow and develop, because we know that if we do that, then the business will grow as well. Because all of our growth comes outside of our comfort zone. So it's meant to feel uncomfortable. You're meant to mess it up. No one knows how to do it. Not making any mistakes means that you're staying exactly where you are. And if we're growing or we're dying, that can't be a good place. So making mistakes is absolutely fine. Making the same mistake time and time again isn't advisable, but making mistakes is absolutely fine. Don't be worried about that as far as I'm concerned anyway. Now, the next slide is called the home team. It consists of my wife, Angela, who some of you have spoken to, and our two daughters, Poppy and Jasmine. And I call it the home team, but I could also call it the why. And it's a question I ask of every audience I ever speak in front of. What's your why? What's your why? Why is it you do what you do? What's that greater reason why you get out of bed every single day? And the why has got to come from here. It's got to come from here. It's a personal thing. It's not a business goal. It's that thing that's going to, when you're having setbacks, because hey folks, do business owners get setbacks? Do we get a lot of like this happening on a daily basis? Absolutely. And I have a phrase that says that nobody fails until they give up. And if we have something that gets us out of bed every single day, it keeps us moving forwards towards that light at the end of the tunnel, it stops us from giving up, then surely that can't be a bad thing. That has to be something that is going to only benefit us and assist us. So I'm not looking for answers. I'm trying to sow the seeds with you today by saying, what's your why? Do you know it? If you do, it's going to act as a real catalyst. Like I said, especially when you're going through tough times, it will be that motivation just to keep moving forward. For reference, ladies and gentlemen, my why is to drive our businesses forwards every single day so that we can have more time as a family. T-I-M-E. To us, that's how our kids spell love. And that's what we want more of. We crave more time. But this slide also has a story behind it that it's very important that I share for you at this very early stage. And it's about my childhood when we were growing up. And when we were growing up, our parents had a business. And when that business started to struggle, my dad did what he thought you're supposed to do, work more hours. And it got to the point where my mum and dad were working sometimes 16, sometimes 18 hours a day, trying to turn this struggling business around. Now, such was the pressure of this inability to turn this around that my father developed quite a nasty drink habit. That alcoholism unfortunately turned to violence towards my mother. We didn't get the violence, we witnessed it. But that alcoholism, my mom, she copped all of the violence. And after about 30 years of putting up with it, my mom had had enough and she divorced my father, again in around the mid-90s. And at that stage, me and my siblings, such had been the devastating impact of my father's behaviour on our upbringing, we decided to go our separate ways with my mother. And my father went his separate way. And about 12 years ago, my father passed away. And we hadn't spoken since the mid-90s. And even if we'd wanted to speak now, we can't do that. And I suppose the reason I explain this story is because I can trace the entire breakdown of our family dynamic down to one thing. My dad didn't know what you're supposed to do. There wasn't the level of support that we have now, thankfully. He just thought you work more. And when people say to me, are you motivated by what you do? Yeah, you bloody well believe it. I'm not going to make any apologies for being passionate about what I do because I've seen what happens when it goes wrong. And if I can stop one person through my help and assistance to them, if I can stop one person doing to their families what my dad did to his, then I believe I've achieved a greater purpose. And that's why I'm driven by what I do, because just because it happened all those years ago in my family, it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen all around us on a daily basis, because we know it does. Small to medium-sized business owners like us, we're the backbone of our great country, and we have a tremendous responsibility to so many people, and that responsibility can take its toll after a while. And there's not much support out there. It's lonely being in business. So I take my responsibility incredibly seriously. I'm very passionate about what I do, and I'm not going to make any apologies for that. So no more deep and meaningful stories, I promise. Thank you very much for listening. So let's continue. I'll tell you a little bit about our business. I started coaching in January 2007. I run the business with my wife, Angela, and our vision is to give every business owner a business to be proud of and a life worth living. And for those of you that know me or get to know me, you'll know that it's the second part of that vision statement that's more important to me, because I can show anyone how to make a stack load of money. But if it killed you in the process, if it stopped you from doing what it is you wanted to do, achieving your objective, seeing your kids grow up, then what was the point? What was the point? We're a long time dead, you know? This is all about having a business and a life. Too many business people think it's one or the other. No, it's not. It's both. And we bloody well deserve it, because the business owners are the ones that put in all of that sacrifice, that effort, that risk, and we deserve it. We deserve to have a life as well. So, what am I doing then? What am I doing with people just like you on a daily basis? Well, I'll tell you what I'm not doing. I'm not consulting. I'm not a consultant. My job is not to do the work. I'm a coach. My job is to firstly raise people's awareness as to what the issues are and where it is that they want to go to, just by getting them to start thinking a little bit more. Then it's about empowering them through knowledge, through education. And then finally, it's about holding them accountable to do what it is that they need to do to move their businesses and their lives forwards. And as you can imagine, that can be quite a challenge, because we have got some deeply ingrained belief systems. For example, ones that say, my only job as the business owner is to put out fires behind everybody, saving a wage. Well, when we first start the business, that's exactly what we have to do. We have to wear all the hats. I totally get that. But if we have a desire to move forwards, if we have a desire to grow and develop, then we have to challenge that. We have to turn that belief system on its head. And we have to get you working on your business, not in it. We have to get you moving away from firefighting to proactive instead of reactive. And a big part of what we do is education. So if anybody on this call wants to earn some more, I'm going to give you some advice right off the bat. You need to learn some more, because there is an inextricable link between learning and earning. If that's your learning ceiling, it's also your earning ceiling. So a big part, as I said, of what we do is empowering our clients with knowledge and then holding them accountable. Because, hey, when you start the business, you lose the boss. Somebody has to be there making us do the stuff that we know full well is going to make the difference. Now, in my first 7 years of coaching, I was part of a global franchise. It had about 1,000 coaches in it all around the world. And in that 7 years, we were really humbled to win a whole load of awards voted for by our peers. And I'm always showing this slide when I do seminars, because I'm incredibly proud of it, because it took a lot of hard work to achieve these awards. And I believe one of the things that we need to do better in our country is we need to celebrate a little bit better, because it's okay focusing on the stuff that went wrong, because, hey, doesn't loads of things go wrong on a daily basis? Absolutely. But how about focusing on the stuff that's going right? Because nobody's going to blow your trumpet for you unless you do it. So have a think about all that great stuff that you've done before and you haven't even acknowledged. And I'm incredibly proud of this, as I said, and that's why I share it on every single session that I do. Now, you guys are giving me half a day of your valuable time, and I want to make sure we give it the right return on your investment. So I'm hoping to give you guys ideas on sales and profits. I hope that's what some of you want to hear today. I'm going to give you some ideas on freeing up your time. It's one of the first things that I work on with a client. So I'm hoping some of that is going to be what you guys are wanting today. And I'm going to give you ideas on how to improve your team. So if they're one of the things that you were looking for today, congratulations, you're on the right webinar. Now, the other thing that I want to achieve today is to challenge your thinking. You see, during the course of today, I might throw in what I call my virtual hand grenades, and they may shake some of you to the core. And when I do that, I'm not doing it because I think I'm right and anyone else is wrong. No way, that's not who I am. What I'm doing it is to get you to challenge your thinking, because you've heard the phrase, I hope, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. So if I can do that, then that can't be a bad thing. Now, I am going to try to tell you something about what we do at the end. Now, I'm not going to be doing it all the way through the course of today, trying to get you to sign up to something. I promise you I'll do it right at the end. The three things I'd like to talk about, if I may, are one-to-one coaching, something called our planning days, which you do every quarter, and there's something called Reach Club, which I am so excited to share with you guys today. It's still quite new, but it's going to change the face of business coaching as far as I'm concerned. But I promise you I'll talk about them at the end. Now, I'm hoping to give you learnings. As I said, you guys are giving me half a day of your valuable time. And when you get what you call one of the light bulb moments, it's very important that you write it down. So if you haven't already, go and get a pen and paper. You will retain 35% more information by taking notes. So whenever you get a light bulb moment, please write it down and be willing to share it at the end, because we can have a discussion about it, or if you put it in the chat box later. Now, I'm going to give you more things that you'll know what to do in your business in the next 12 months. I promise you. But none of it will work. None of it will even register if your mindset isn't right, if your mindset isn't right. So underpinning everything we do is something we call our generalized principles. They're mindset slides that are going to help you at any stage, whether it's good times or not so good times, as we've all been through in the last couple of months. And the first mindset slide I want to share with you, the first generalized principle, by the way, generalized principle, what does that mean? That means that it's applicable all the time in any walk of life. It's like gravity, that law applies all the time. So do these generalized principles, they apply all the time. The first one is about participation, giving things a go. Warren Buffett, third wealthiest man on earth, the last time I checked, he says the only difference between him and the other investors is he gives things a go. Well, Warren Buffett, in his own words, doesn't always get the right results. But as he says, when he does, he makes loads of money. When he doesn't, he gets lots of learnings. But if he sat on his hands and did nothing, he would get nothing. And that's so true in every walk of life. It's about giving things a go, because if we try to do something, we create an energy. We create an energy, and does it always give us the result that we were looking for? No. But if we take action, there could be a consequent ripple effect somewhere else. Well, I call it the law of precession. The law of precession states there's always an equal or greater effect at 90 degrees to where you were aiming. So if we threw the pebble in the water, the ripple effects go that way. That's a great example of the law of precession. But if we did nothing, we would get nothing. So that's why it's really important. And in the last couple of months that we've all been through, folks, if we haven't participated, if we haven't engaged, if we haven't looked for the opportunities that no doubt will be there, then we're going to miss out on this. We will look back on this as all bad, whereas I want people to look back on this and go, whilst it was terrible, especially, God forbid, if anybody lost a loved one, there was lots of good that came out of it. Paul was alluding to it earlier. And we're going to miss out on this if we don't look at things through the right lens, by engaging, by participating, by giving things a go. It's so important that we don't forget that. So participation, please. Let's engage today, and we'll get so much more out of today, I promise you. Now, if you have children or teenage children, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I know. I know are the two worst words in the English language when it comes to preventing learning. I know the two words that as soon as you utter them, you actually close down your brain to anything else that you're going to take in that conversation. If you've ever read a book more than once, watched a film more than once, you've seen things, read things the second time, you didn't get the first time, that's because you stayed open to it. So it's really important that during the course of today, we leave the I knows outside. If you sit there going, well, I know this is obvious, then you're going to take nothing in for the rest of today's webinar. So please, let's leave the I knows outside. If you think I'm covering something that you're already familiar with, just change the languaging ever so subtly to isn't that interesting. That keeps your brain open and stops it from closing down, okay? Now, the second most important mindset slide I can ever share with anybody is this one. And it's about that blue line that runs across the middle of this slide. It's about that line of choice that we walk along every single day. Because does everything in life and business always go according to plan? We wish. But when it doesn't, unfortunately, too many people have got a default behavior. And that is, let's go below the line. Let's start blaming everyone and everything else. Let's start making excuses. Let's bury our head in the sand even and forget it's even happening. But when you're below the line, shouting, ranting, raving, criticizing, having what I call the pity party, let me ask you a question. What are you actually fixing about what's just gone wrong? Nothing. And actually what we're doing is we're wasting what I believe is our number one asset, our energy. You see, I believe the healthiest and wealthiest question we can ever ask when something goes wrong is this. So what am I going to do about it? What am I going, not us, not them, not we, I. What am I going to do about it? And it's about getting above that line, because I promise you, if that is your response when something goes wrong, I guarantee you, you'll be healthier and wealthier as a result of it. Because it's a lifestyle choice, it's a mindset. Instead of going down there, let's start going up there. That's the choice that I'm introducing you to today. So when something goes wrong, remember the first question, the only question. So what am I going to do about it? Okay, so let's continue. This is a business concept. It's a generalized principle that you might not think is one. It is. It's fun. The question to ask, especially over the last couple of months, is how much fun have we actually had? I know it's been really hard, folks, for all of us, myself included. But If we have fun, then we release the muscles in the neck and the shoulders. We get more blood flowing through the brain. The creative side of the brain starts to flow a little bit better. If we're talking to customers, even down a phone, they can see a smile. They see people enjoying themselves. So as the leaders, people take our lead. So it's really important that we take a moment to reflect and ask ourselves, how conducive is our environment to fun, enjoyment, and happiness? Because if people are enjoying what they're doing, they perform better. Okay. Now, I said above and below the line was the second most powerful mindset concept that I could share with you. The most important, however, is this one. It's the be times do equals have. You see, most business owners have a rough idea about what they want to have. As I'll prove in a second, most of them are lousy at writing it down and turning it into goals, but they've got a rough idea. And most people know about the middle bit, what they need to do to have what they want to have. But here's the bit that I'm going to introduce you to today that no one else will. It's the left-hand side of the equation as you look at it, the be. Who is the person that you need to be whilst you're doing what you're doing to ultimately get what you want to have? And the first time I explain this to people, show it to people, they're a little bit confused. They say to me, what does the be mean? That sounds like hugging trees and getting in touch with your inner self. Well, I need to really labour this point, folks, because there's no doubt that the people on this call are the ones that do the most. Well, there's no argument there. But I want to show you how you can make your life so much easier by understanding what the be is. And the way that I want to do it is through a mathematical formula. I hope that will get home why this is so important, the left-hand side of the equation. So for those of you who did physics at school, you'll know that formula across the top of the screen. And the be times do equals have is nothing more than a formula. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to use numbers to really highlight why the left-hand side of the equation is so important. And I also want to share with you a scenario. I'm going to share with you a scenario of a salesperson, a professional salesperson who has always done sales, but they've moved to a new industry. They've moved to, let's say, for argument's sake, IT. So they've never done sales in IT before. And when they first start, what they want to have is 16. Whatever 16 means, just roll with me with the numbers, please, for a second. 16, it could be their targets, the commission they want to earn, whatever it is. And when they first start, their B, their skills, their knowledge, their confidence is going to be quite low, isn't it? Because they've never done it in this environment before. So in order to get to where they want to get to get to have what they want to have, they're going to have to do quite a lot. Now, let's fast forward 6 months. And let's say they've got better. Let's say they've got some sales under their belt, more confidence, more knowledge of the product. And in order to get to the same result, they don't have to do as much. Now let's fast forward another 6 months. They're doing it with their feet up and the cigar lit. In order to get to that same result, they don't have to do much. And if I was the manager right now, I'd be questioning the have and seeing if I needed to raise the bar. But the real lesson in this formula, this is why this is the most important, is there could be people on this webinar, and it's okay, it's totally fine if you're feeling that way, thinking, what a load of nonsense. What's wrong with just good old-fashioned hard work? Well, absolutely nothing. And by the way, the be times do equals have does not circumvent, for me, the fundamental prerequisite to success, which is good old-fashioned hard work. What it's doing is making your life a little bit easier. But there could be people on this call thinking, what a load of nonsense. What's wrong with just good old-fashioned hard work? What's wrong with just working really hard? I don't need to read a book. I don't need to get better at being a manager, a marketeer, a salesperson, an understander of numbers, a time management expert. Doesn't matter. I don't need to be. I'm just going to work really hard. But what does 0 times 16 give us? For those of you that struggle first thing in the morning, I'll tell you. Now, there might be some of you still on this call thinking, it's still nonsense. I'm going to work nights. But I tell you, you're going to get the same result. And I think the key thing to stress here is it's about putting 1 or 2 points in the left-hand side of the equation to make our lives so much easier. Now, you might want to keep doing the amount that you're doing in order to increase your have. But you've got to think, when was the last time you put any time and effort into improving you as a person? One client explained it beautifully. They're a canoeist and they brought some oars in once. And they said, if you're in a canoe and you only row one way, what happens? Yeah, you go round in circles. So what we've got to do is we've got to row both. It's the be and the do. It's not one or the other. It's not going to the top of the mountain, closing your eyes and omming your way to success. It's about not bypassing the do, but making our lives easier. Did my dad know this equation? No. He thought it was about the middle bit. This is about making our lives a little bit easier by getting better. Some people refer to it working smarter, not harder. But for me, it's about us, the individual. What am I going to do about it? We remove all of that confusion that we have about what the solutions are when we just ask ourselves that question: what am I going to do about it? Because with that question, we remove 360 degrees worth of options. We realize it's here. There's going to be an answer in here, and it's about the B. You've got to get better if you want to improve and have more in your life, okay? So the B times do equals have, folks, underpins absolutely everything that we do. I don't coach businesses. I coach human beings that run businesses, okay? So on the subject of business, we've done a few mindset slides. There's a few more I'm going to share with you at the end. Start thinking about how you can utilize those generalized principles to help you. But let me tell you one thing. What you can do is start putting them up in front of you so you can use them, because if they're out of sight, they're out of mind. So you've got to make them visible. If you want them, just email me. I'll gladly PDF them across to you so that you've got access to them. Okay, so question: who drives your business? Even before COVID-19, you know, were you in the top picture? Or did you have it all licked and you had it under control? I think what I find is that most people are in the middle. They can flit between both of those pictures at any given moment. I think it's important that we realize where we are on that scale. Because the brutal facts are that most people only ever have a job. Because if our business cannot run for an extended period of time, if it's only reliant on one, maybe two, three key individuals, it's not a business, it's a job. And I'd like to think that the recent events have really exacerbated that, really highlighted it and brought it into the glaringly obvious how much over-reliance maybe we had on people as opposed to systems and processes. And that's a big thing that we're going to talk about later on after the break. You see, like I said, if our business cannot function for an extended period of time, it's not a business, it's a job. And that's the brutal facts for most, not all, but for most. And unfortunately, for the vast majority, not all, but the vast majority, it means just over broke. And we're going to work towards fixing that. That's what we're all about, giving our clients a business. So what's our definition of a real business? What should we all be working towards? Well, it's a profitable business that works and continues to grow without you. A profitable business that works and continues to grow without you. And that's the key bit, without you. Because as I said, if it's that one single point of failure, it's not a business. It's not a business. And that's what we've got to work towards. And a lot of people think that's pie in the sky. They think that's an unachievable objective. Well, if you're close to that, then it will never happen. If you even welcome one degree of possibility in, then it's amazing how you can start shaping your mindset, okay? And the way that I like to explain this is, you may have no desire ever to be a franchise. Some of you may on the call be a franchise, I don't know. But if you think like you're going to be a franchise, then what you have to do is start making this work without you. This has to work through systems and processes, you see. Let's say you had 80 branches, whether it's around the country or around the world. Well, you couldn't go around each one of those every single morning opening them up. It's physically impossible. So you would have to have systems and processes to do this for you. So start thinking like you're going to be a franchise, and you're not going to go too far wrong, because that's going to extract you. It's going to make sure that systems run the business so that you don't have to. Okay, so how do we do it? How do we do it? Well, it's through the cycle of business success. It's the model that I created. It's the model that I use with absolutely every single client I ever work with, regardless of their shape, size, flavor, location. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where we are in the economic cycle. The principles remain exactly the same. And it's not about just freestyling. It's not about just coaching people on a day-to-day basis thinking, right, what should we talk about today? This is about making sure that when we finish this cycle of business success, the first pass, it's fit, it is built to last. Now, the key thing to remember is that this is a circle. So the circle symbolizes that it never ends. When I was in the franchise, it was about a ladder. And when I left the franchise, I was really passionate about turning it into a circle, because people think that one day they're going to wake up, they're going to open the curtains in the morning, a great shaft of sunlight's going to come in, and the hallelujah music's going to play. and they think they've got it licked. Well, unfortunately, I think you've died and gone to heaven. It never happens. What we've got to understand is that this is a continual, never-ending improvement process. You see, we might get through. It starts from mastery, which I'm going to talk about in a minute in the top right-hand corner, and we get to team. But then we go again. And we go again, and we keep going. We keep going in circles until we either retire or we sell. And that's what the ultimate objective has got to be, which I'll talk about later as well. Now, I'm going to spend the rest of my slots during this session. I appreciate Billy's going to talk a little bit before the break, talking about this, in particular, the 4 key areas. But before I go into that detail, I always believe it's important just to explain the context of this. I believe people understand content better when they understand context, okay? So, it starts at mastery. It starts in the top right-hand corner. Laying the foundations. It is the basics. It's about establishing that control. Because too many people, the only reason why the business is running is because the business owner is running really hard and really fast. And as I hope you'll all agree with me, that is not sustainable. It's got to be something else propping up the business. Unfortunately, too many businesses are only built on the ability, as I said, of the business owner to hold it up. Sooner or later, that business owner is going to collapse and the business is going to collapse with them. So mastery is the fundamental building block to start with. Next comes growth, where all of that sexy marketing and sales stuff happens. And it's where most people say, Jazz, I want to start there. But there's a reason why mastery comes first. For example, in everyone's business, I hope you'll agree with me, folks, that we have different products and services that make us different amounts of profitability. And for the vast majority of business people, they don't know the differences between that. And it could be that you're selling something that loses you money and you don't know it. So we go straight to growth and we start marketing and selling some of that stuff that's losing you money and bankrupt you quicker. No, absolutely not. That's why mastery comes first. We need to understand this. And we need to understand our numbers. Just like, for example, we need to get control of our time. If you're already working 80 hours a week, you want me to give you another 20 and kill you sooner? No way. We've got to master those basics first before we start growing. After growth comes leverage. For me, the real secret. Systems and processes. Making systems and processes do the work so that we don't have to. And then finally comes team. Our management, our recruitment, our leadership of our people. And again, people say to me, Jazz, hang on, why have you got all team right at the end? I've got all these other things to do and then I can't hire anybody until then. Well, let me tell you something now. You will have to hire people because we're going to make you busier. But there's a reason why team comes last. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever hired anybody and it's not worked? It's been an absolute disaster from start to finish. If that's been you, and I can see some pained expressions, then here's my humble opinion on this and why I think it happens. Because too many business people, we bring in people to run our businesses, and with the greatest of respect to them, they're not qualified to run our business. What they should be brought in to do is to run our systems and processes that you wrote. So for those of you on this call that are perfectionists, it's okay. You're going to ensure that when somebody else does it, they do it your way, not any way. That's why team comes after that. And once we have that happening, we now have this important sequence happening. We have systems running the business. We have people running the systems. And now all you need to do is lead the people. Or when you get to the freedom stage, is to put a general manager or a chief exec or an MD in. I'll say it again. Systems run the business. People run the systems. You, or in the future, somebody else leads the people. And if you think like that, again, you're not going to go too far wrong. So that's the model that I teach. And that's what we're going to go through the rest of today talking about. So let's start with mastery. Let's start with mastery. As I said, it's all about the foundations. And mastery is broken into 5 key areas, folks. Mind, destination, time, money, and delivery. I'm only going to touch upon the top 2, but I'm going to spend a bit more time talking about the bottom 3, because the top 2 are very personal to the individual. I'll start with mind, if I may. Our mindset, as far as I'm concerned, and I said it in one of my first videos. By the way, if you want to check the videos out, they're on the YouTube channel, they're on the new website, which was only launched yesterday, funnily enough. Any videos you want to see, you'll hear me repeat this, especially at the start of COVID-19. I said our mindset will determine what happens for the rest of this year and beyond. Because a mindset drives 100% of what we are and what we do. 100%. And it's either going to become an asset or a liability. I believe our mindset is our USP. If we control it rather than being controlled by it, then it can really act as an asset, not a liability. And it's about what time we're giving to our mind. How much time, care, attention are we giving to nourishing our mind? Yeah, and one of the things I talk about are the pillars. The pillars. Imagine a plinth like this, and it was one pillar holding it up. Well, that plinth may wobble like this. Imagine having lots of pillars on that plinth. Now that plinth is going to be a lot more solid, should I say. And in crosswinds, it's not going to wobble as much. And that's how we have to think about mind. We have to put lots of pillars underneath us to hold us steady, especially, folks, when we've just experienced some incredibly strong crosswinds. So what are those pillars? I talk about things like exercise. I talk about diet. I talk about hydration, sleep, meditation, reading, time for ourselves, looking at the mindset slides that I shared with you. All of those things you're going to do are going to be another pillar that's going to hold you more steady in those crosswinds. So the thing with these things are, especially the mindset tools that I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to add a few more in at the end, they're tools to help you. Make them visible so they help you, because if you leave tools in a toolbox, they go rusty. You know, you've got to have them out. You've got to have them visible so you can, when you're going through a bad point or you're going below the line, you can go, oh, wow, I'm going below the line here. What did that crazy guy say on that webinar? He said, what am I going to do about it? Okay. So, you know, you've got to work on the mindset, folks. You've got to make it an asset, not a liability. And the next one that I just want to generalize on is destination mastery. Where are we going? Where are we going? We wouldn't get into the car without knowing where we were going. Surely we would have an end destination in mind. And my question during these sessions is always, out of you, if you haven't got documented 12-month goals for a calendar year or your financial year, whatever it may be, then you must. You see, what those goals will do, because you're going to make them visible, is they're going to allow you to cross-reference your behaviors on a daily basis. Every day you're doing something, you can ask yourself a question. What I'm doing right now, is it taking me there, wherever there may be? And if it's not, then why am I doing it? You see, too many people are just aimlessly ambling through on a day-to-day basis. And we need something else, because if we set the sail and say we're going that way, we are 99% much more likely to end there or thereabouts. So the importance of having those documented 12-month goals is so critical. I'm going to share a statistic with you in a minute. Now, for a lot of people that have got those 12-month goals, are they having to rewrite them after what's just happened? Yes, absolutely. Some people are saying, no, it's a mindset choice. I'm still going to go for my 12-month goals. Some people are saying I need to be pragmatic and reassess the plan for the rest of this year. That's cool as well. There's not a right or wrong, but we need to have something we're working towards, folks. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why you've got to have them visible and documented on a daily basis. It comes from a study that's been done for, I think it's over 60 years now, where the study people, they tag a university graduating year anywhere around the world, just another one every year. And they stay in touch with these graduates and they revisit them after 25 years. And here's what they found, for having done it nearly 60 years now, I believe. They found that only 3% of those graduates every single year wrote down their goals and had them visible. But here's the incredible thing. They found that that same 3% always accounted for 98% of the wealth of that university year as well. Now, I'm not a statistician by any stretch of the imagination, but even I know that after 60 years with that data sample, that cannot be a coincidence. We can form some basic assumptions off the back of it, that by having them visible, by guiding us on a conscious and, more importantly, subconscious level on a daily basis, we're much more likely to end up there. So please get yourself into that 3% of people that have goals that are written, that are visible to them on a daily basis. Daily basis. Please write that down, folks. So that's what I wanted to talk about destination. Just two nuggets on destination, a couple on mind mastery. Where I want to spend a bit more time is on, funny enough, time, money, and delivery. Let's start with time. So after mind mastery, as far as I'm concerned, with my clients, that is the most important thing that we have to master, is our time. Okay, and a wise person once said that you can make £1 million and you can lose £1 million, but there's nothing stopping you from making it back again in the same lifetime. But once you've spent or wasted a second of your time, you can't bring it back, which is why time is more valuable than money. Time is more valuable than money. And we all get given the same amount every single day. But how come some people use it better than others? And that's the key to this, is what our relationship with time is, which I'll talk about later. Now, I said that the first stage of coaching and any development, to be honest, is awareness, raising our awareness as to what the issues are. And one of the awareness raising tools that I use, ladies and gentlemen, is the time zone. Okay, and this is 4 key segments, and let's go through them. The first one is not urgent and not important. And these are tasks that business owners and senior managers get involved in on a daily basis that are not urgent and not important. Things like social media, browsing the internet, checking needless emails, all of that kind of stuff. And we call that distraction, ladies and gentlemen. We call that distraction. Now, in a recent study, it was found, hold on to your hats on this one, folks, 65% of our working day was lost to distractions. I knew it was bad. I had never in my wildest dreams or nightmares ever thought it could be 65%, but it is. Nearly 2/3 of our working day, that precious time that we're all given, the same amount, is lost due to distractions. Now, it's not the, I'm working on something really detailed and somebody asked me what I want for lunch and I said, oh, can you get me a sandwich, please? Thanks. It's not that. It's the, now where was I? It's the inability to conclude a task fully without distraction, which is the absolute killer. Another statistic for you is that on average, we are distracted every 11 minutes. And when that happens, they say that on average, it takes us about another 23 minutes. Let that sink in. 23 minutes to get back to where we were. That is the incredibly destructive nature of distractions. Now, some of you might have noticed this over the last couple of months if you've been working from home. And you haven't had those people around you distracting. You might have had your kids or your families, I don't know. But some of you may want to think, how much more have you got done without those distractions around you? So what we've got to do is understand those distractions and more importantly, where they come from. They come from people typically in 3 main guises. They come from emails, phone calls, and face-to-face. They come from emails, phone calls, and face-to-face. So let's talk about emails first and foremost. There's a virtual belief shaker coming in right now, guys. I say switch off emails. Yes, I just said that, and I'm not a lunatic. I did say switch off emails. You see, if you're one of these people, you're working on something really, really detailed, and the email icon flashes, you go and check it because you can't help yourself, and you realize it's spam, you delete it. Now, where was I? And that is the biggest challenge. If you're like that, then this should be resonating with you. So what we've always got to do, folks, is always look for a system solution, not a people solution, because people don't always follow the same path. So my advice in this instance always is to switch off your email. Switch it off. Don't just have it there and say, I'm not going to check it, because you will. Switch it off. And if you can't trust yourself to even switch it off, then ask your IT people to switch off send and receive. Only switch it on 3 times a day. You see, my most successful clients only check emails 3 times a day. And here's the thing. Let me tell you what doesn't happen. The world does not stop spinning on its axis. The world does not stop spinning on its axis if you do this. And let me tell you what will happen is, first, of course, you're going to have a lot less distractions, but you're going to have people saying to you, wow, that's a great idea. I'm going to start doing that now. Because the other thing that I strongly suggest you do to manage the customer sensation, because if you're freaking out here about what that looks like to your customers, what you do is you have it as an out of office that pings back every time they send you an email, or you have it on your signature as well. It says, I only check emails 3 times a day, 8 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 4 o'clock. If it's urgent, please call me. Because folks, if it was, they should have. When did we get to in business life that we have to jump every time an email comes in? For those of you that were around before emails, you know that business still happened. Something has happened up here with mindset that says that we've got to be all over it. No, we don't. We check it at certain points during the day to ensure that we kick back on those distractions. Now, that's the first one. So for those of you picking up from your chairs and getting back into your chair, should I say, I'm going to continue. Let's talk about the next one, and that is people. Now, actually, no, let me talk about phone calls first. So people say, Jazz, when I'm doing one of those, what I call £500 an hour jobs that only the people on this call can do, the ones that are going to make all the difference. I take my phone with me, but I switch off emails, but I've got my phone on silent. So get this, I'm working on something really detailed. My phone starts going because it's on silent, but I've got it facing me, and it's my biggest client. Hey, but Jazz said, don't answer your phone, so I'm not going to. Now they've just left me a voicemail. You see, you're distracted. You're already lost. So move your phone away from you. And I'm not talking all day. I'm talking for half an hour at a time, so you can get so much more done with your valuable and precious time. The other one is another huge one, and I think this is more destructive than any of the other two, emails and phone calls, is people. How many of you folks get have you got a minute? Have you got a minute? Let me ask you a question. How many times is it just a minute, by the way? It never is. But the reason I think this is a lot more destructive is because I believe this is multifaceted in the amount of impact that it has around us. You see, you tell me, whenever anyone asks us a question, is it not true that 95% of the time they already knew the answer? Yeah, they do. But what we've created inadvertently is a culture of dependency, a safety net that says every single time, I'm not going to think for myself, I'm just going to ask them. And the reason this is multifaceted in its destructive ability is that not only does it lose you your time, here's the other thing. If all we ever do is answer our people's questions, are we letting them grow and develop? No. See, each of us on this call may have a couple of 24-carat nuggets sitting right under our noses, but we're not going to let them prosper and flourish and rise to the surface because we're going to cap their learning here, because we're not going to let them think for themselves. That's why this is so destructive. So here's my advice to anybody, is that when that happens, when you're asked a question, I believe you should always answer back with another question. Things like, so what do you think we should do? Or what would you do if I wasn't here? Or what did you do last time? You know, things like that. So as managers, we have to firstly accept that we created that culture of dependency, and then secondly, do something about it. So have a think about distractions, folks. How are they showing up on a day-to-day basis in your life? And remember, 2/3 of your working day is taken from distractions. You've got to get on top of this, folks. You've got to start doing something more about this, because you're never going to get control of your time. The next phase is urgent and not important. We call that delusion. Why? Because at any given point during the day, you start telling yourself that something isn't important, even though it is. You, for example, just bury your head in the sand and go into denial. That happens to all of us at any given point of the day. We have demand, which is where we're doing our do, folks. You know, we're getting on with the stuff that matters in the business stuff. But the real bit that I want you to think about is this bit here, the top, the zone. Not urgent, but important. Working on your business, not in your business. This is where I have to take my clients. This is what I call the £500 an hour zone. This is the bit that if you don't do it, nobody else is going to do. And that's what we have to do more of. Get ourselves in the zone, okay? Because the rule of thumb, by the way, folks, is that for every minute you spend in the zone, you'll save 10 minutes having to be in demand. For every 1 minute you spend being proactive, putting a system or a process into place, you'll save 10 minutes having to put out fires in the future. So have a think about the time zone and where your time is being spent, okay? So remember, if you master time, everything else you try to do going forward becomes infinitely easier because you're in control. Now, let's talk about money mastery, another critically important aspect of mastery. And the bit for me that I've seen over the last 2 to 3 months has held people more intact, because the people that had money mastery, to a man and a woman, 100% have fared better over the last few months because they understood their numbers. You see, if you don't know the numbers, you don't know the score. And if you don't know the score, you don't know if you're winning or you're losing. And if you don't know if you're winning or you're losing, then what's the point in playing the game? And money is the language of business, and we have to understand it, okay? And underpinning this is this. Underpinning anything in money mastery is budgeting and reporting. So for those of you on this call that have got a 12-month profit and loss forecast in place, broken down into months, where you, at the end of every month, populate what's just happened, well done. To those of you on this call that don't have that, I need to be very blunt. You must. You absolutely, no grey areas, you must. You see, the thing is, most people think that money mastery is getting their year-end accounts at the end of the year. Well, let me ask you a question, folks. What can you change about that year after it's gone? Nothing. You know, when they fly to the moon, or let's use the International Space Center as a topical example, they don't fly in a straight line. They make something like 60,000 minor corrections on the way based on the data that they're reading back. And that's what business is for me. As owners, as leaders, as custodians and guardians of the business, we're supposed to read that data regularly. In this instance, I said monthly, but if you're in a retail business, it should be weekly. We should read that data, compare it against what we thought was going to happen, and say, what adjustments do we need to make? That is what good looks like. So everybody in every kind of business needs at the bare minimum to have a 12-month profit and loss forecast in place that you populate with actuals. I've got the templates, you can have them, you can see how easy this is. Okay, that gives you that ability to make those adjustments as we're going through the year, not at the end of the year. Now, the other document that we all need is a cash flow forecast. Now, I say 13-week cash flow forecast. Why? Because pretty much after a week, it becomes impossible to forecast your cash. But 13-week is how we do everything. We do everything on quarterly cycles. But recently, especially those clients that are dealing in larger projects, we've extended that to 26 and sometimes 52-week cash flow forecasts. Because the issue is that too many business people, let's say we have a problem in week 8 where we're going to run out of cash. Unfortunately, most business people wake up on the Monday of week 8 and realize they're going to run out of cash and now it's too late to fix it. Imagine if you're doing this every week, you're updating your cash flow. Well, you can look at it now and go, hey, we've got a problem in week 8. Well, you've got 8 weeks to fix this. We can do something about it. That's the other critical document that we have, a profit and loss and a cash flow. And the other document we have, by the way, is this one, a dashboard, a dashboard. You see, the profit and loss and the cash flow only tell you about one aspect of the business, the financials. But in everyone's business, I hope you'll all agree with me, there is a whole raft of other variables that, again, us as custodians and the guardians of the business need to keep an eye on. Like when we're driving the car, we need to make sure there's no flashing red lights. You know, if we walked into a hospital, walked into accident and emergency, and saw a patient being treated on a hospital bed, normally that patient is hooked up to machines. And those machines are giving the doctors outputs. Pardon me, they're telling the doctors, well, that change that you just made there is had a positive or negative effect on the patient. That's exactly what a dashboard needs to do. Now, you can go for fully automated software solutions if you choose, but my advice to start with, folks, is just an Excel spreadsheet with a time frame across the top and a set of variables down the side, where we're going to track those on a daily, weekly, or the worst case, monthly basis. For argument's sake, let's say, we've got one there, because I said our new website only went live yesterday, our revamped website. And it could be that all of a sudden we get loads more inquiries. Well, I'll just say, well, brilliant, that was because of the website. Well, surely in my dashboard, I should have my web stats. Everybody should have your web stats. Well, if I have, I might turn around and realize that actually, you know what? The new website had nothing to do with those number of inquiries that came in, for example, June. It was the fact that we did this social media post that seemed to have aced it. See, we need to be able to see that. We can't just assume what we know is true. We need the facts. The facts. And I have a massive belief around money mastery that numbers tell us what to do next. We're not guessing. See, when we first start, ladies and gentlemen, we have our finger on the pulse. We do, when we're on top of everything and we are the only ones there and all that kind of stuff. But as we grow, as we add more people, as we add more layers of complexity into the business, we're not as close to the numbers as we thought we were and as we used to be. We need systems and processes to help us, of which one of them is the dashboard. You see, I have multiple businesses of my own and I've coached thousands over the years. And I've told you 2 documents that I need, the profit and loss and the cash flow. The other one is the dashboard. And let me tell you now, hand on heart with absolute integrity, if I have those 3 documents, I can steer any business safely, securely, professionally, and more importantly, with integrity. Through any level of choppy waters or calm waters, it doesn't matter. With those 3 documents, we have got money mastery. Yes, there's loads of other things that we need to do, but with those 3, we can be absolutely secure in our decision making and our protecting of a business, as I said, as the custodians and guardians of that business. So it's really important, folks. Just 3 things. You see, a lot of people say, oh, well, I don't want to do money. I don't want to do numbers because that's that mysterious dark art. That's what we pay the accountants for. Well, as I always say in these, when I'm doing a seminar, and Paul will hopefully testify to this for me, if the accountancy book is that big and thick, the likes of Paul, Ravi at Wren and anybody else needs to understand. Us humble business owners, we only need to understand 1 page. That's all we need to understand. And I promise you, if I can understand that 1 page, so can you. I promise you I'll teach it so that you have confidence in your decision-making ability. There's no excuse not to understand our numbers. As I said, we have all the templates, we give them to you so that you can now steer this ship correctly. So, just a few ideas on money mastery. And then the final one in mastery is delivery mastery. one that sometimes gets missed. You see, there's no point in going forwards into growth and bringing in new business if all we're doing is losing existing customers. They're falling out the bottom of the imaginary bucket. That just doesn't make any sense at all. Surely it makes sense to ensure that we keep hold of our existing customers by blowing them away with our delivery and the customer sensation. So, which global organization that we all know that only just opened up a couple of days ago, the drive-through aspect of it at least, that's left, unfortunately, loads of people leaving their rubbish everywhere. That global organization, McDonald's, gets voted #1 in its class for customer satisfaction every single year. Why? Well, it's because of this key word here: consistency. You see, we are creatures of habit, folks. We want things to be the same every single time. And that's why McDonald's gets voted #1, despite the fact that they trust their customers so little that they screw the furniture to the ground. They don't serve them the most nutritionally beneficial food. And if anyone's on the call, please feel free to challenge me. The customer service isn't world class at McDonald's, but when you go to McDonald's, you know what's going to happen. And that's our challenge, folks. That's our challenge in business. How consistent is the experience when people touch our business? See, is it dependent on the mood of the person that they're talking to that day? Because if it is, then we know that that is not going to be a consistent experience. So what we need is to look at our entire process and work out how we're going to make it more consistent. So let me give you a story. So let's say I moved to a new town and I'm new to that town. I don't know anyone in that town. I've gone for a new job and I need to get a haircut before I start. And I'm walking down the street and I notice a barber shop. I walk into the barbershop, and as I walk in, I'm meted and greeted by the business owner. Takes my name, introduces himself, takes me over to this beautiful seated waiting area. Lovely leather sofas, couple of armchairs. There's a beautiful shiny glass table with some pristine magazines on it. There's a flat screen TV on the wall with Sky Sports News playing. And as I sit there waiting for my haircut, somebody comes over and takes my drinks order. Well, I asked for a cup of tea. And when this cup of tea comes, it comes on a bone china cup and saucer. And as I get taken over to my haircut a few minutes later, I notice that the business owner is cutting my hair, and I notice there's another cup of tea in a bone china cup and saucer waiting for me. And the business owner proceeds to wash my hair, talking about why that's important before you cut it. And he also talks about using scissors instead of electric clippers, because that's all about his craft. And I leave that establishment thinking, wow, what a great place to be. I leave a substantial tip and I say, I'll be back here, which I do in 2 weeks' time. And as I walk in, I notice that the business owner isn't there. But that's okay, everyone's entitled to a day off, I say. I make my way over, because nobody's meted and greeted me. I make my way over to the waiting area. I sit down. I notice there's a few scrappy magazines on quite dusty glass table now. I notice that Sky Sports is on. I get my drinks order. I ask for a cup of tea. But this time, the cup of tea comes in a polystyrene vending machine cup. Bit puzzled. Anyway, I get taken over for my haircut. I notice that there's no refill waiting for me. This time, the person washes my hair, but uses electric clippers. So I'm really confused now. I'm really confused. It's nothing like the first experience, but because the first experience was so good, I am definitely going to go back, because they just had a bad day, I tell myself. So I go back for visit 3, 2 weeks later. I walk in and notice the business owner's there, thank goodness. Meets and greets me, takes me over to the waiting area. There's no magazines on the table. Sky Sports isn't even on. The TV's not even switched on. Nobody comes and takes my drinks order. I go over to my haircut. The business owner's doing it. There's a glass of water waiting for me that I didn't even ask for. This time, the business owner doesn't wash my hair, but he uses scissors. So not one of those 3 experiences was consistent. And here's what's going to happen statistically, ladies and gentlemen, after that 3rd visit. Customers are going to say, 80% of the time, customers are going to say, I don't know what's going to happen here, therefore I'm going somewhere else. And those same statistics apply to every business on earth. And that's what we on this webinar today have to start thinking about. How consistent is the experience that people go through when they touch your business? And if it's not, what are you going to do to make it more consistent? Our emails. By the way, I'm not saying that a pink Comic Sans font on your emails with a lol and a kiss at the end is any better than Times New Roman, Black, 10, Professional. I'm not doing any of that. But I'm saying you have to be consistent. I never ask for excellence. I ask for consistency. And that's what we have to come to terms with. Do all of your vans look the same if you have that when you go out people's site? Is everybody dressed the same? Do they have the uniform? Is the opening closing salutation the same? Do we have templates for emails and documents? All of that. Do we have scripts when people come into the shop or call us or anything like that? That's our job, folks, because if we do it, then people are much more likely to stay, much more likely to stay. So that's what we need to do. Now, that was a high-level overview of mastery. Look at the definition of mastery, from chaos to control, just to establish that basic level foundations. So we've now got something that's sustainable that we can build on, which we're going to do with growth, And growth starts with another virtual belief shaker coming in, folks. No price competition. No price competition. For those of you that have to discount to win work, that's an incredibly dangerous place to be in, because your entire business strategy could be compromised tomorrow if your nearest and biggest customer started going on a cost-cutting spree and therefore cut their prices. That isn't a good place to be, because every time we have to discount to win something, of course, the only people that suffer are us, with our margin being compressed. And it's a bloodbath, and it's not where we want to be. Now, when I say no price competition, I'm pretty sure there's going to be people on this call saying, but he doesn't understand my business. My business is different. Well, let me underpin everything I'm going to say next with a statistic. Only 9% of people buy on price. I'm going to say that again. Only 9% of people buy on price. Pretty much 100% say they do, but only 9 do, meaning 91% don't. And what we have to do is understand what it is that they're buying. What are they buying? See, the only reason they're shopping on price is because we've given them nothing else to shop on. What we have to do is give them another reason, give them another justification for purchasing our product or service. And the way that we're going to do that is by creating USPs and guarantees. You see, guarantee is the second most powerful word in marketing, second to the word free. What guarantee does is reduce risk and increase trust. And it takes people's minds away from price, okay? In the first instance, USP, so a unique selling proposition, and if we can bind it with a guarantee, even better. Now, again, as I said, there's going to be people on this webinar going, but you don't understand my business, it's all about price. Well, what I'm going to say with 100% respect and humility, I promise you, that's who I am, is when I was in the global franchise, I had access to hundreds and thousands of data sets. And in my personal experience in business coaching, small to medium-sized business people just like you, I have got thousands and thousands of sets of data. And it's been proven every single time. You'll see some case studies later on after the break as well that will validate that. In industries that, wow, have been decimated recently, and everyone thinks it's about price, but it's not. Let me give you a story to validate this. Many years ago, ladies and gentlemen, I coached a tiler, and that tiler's customers were the 3 main home builders in the area. And every time those home builders had a new development, they used to put out to the tilers and say, hey, they put out to all the trades and say, hey, get your tenders in. And the trades would do everything that they've always done, go as low as they possibly could to win the work. And when they were notified that they'd been successful in their tender bids, they'd probably look at the numbers again and go, why did I go so low? There's nothing but headaches in this. Quite a common thing that I would suggest that most people can relate to, that happens all around us every day. So we got working with this tiler, and we got to survey the 3 main home builders. And one of the questions on that survey was, what don't you like about tilers? Not us in general, but tilers in general, the industry in general. And what did I say just there? I said that 100% of people say they shop on price, okay? So what was the first thing that came back on each of those 3 questionnaires? You're too expensive, you're not value for money. Listen, just accept that people are going to say that. What you've got to do is look beyond that, look underneath that and see if there's any common themes. And in this example, there were 3. There were 3 common themes that came back from these questionnaires from the home builders. They said, you tilers are lousy at your timekeeping. We hate that because it throws our building schedules out. They said that you tilers are so messy. You leave so much mess in our properties after you finish. We have to send another cleaner in to complete that property. We hate that. We don't think we should have to do that. And the final one was, you tilers can be quite careless. You know, you typically end up scratching walls and scuffing doors or damaging stuff when you're working. And again, we don't like that. We don't think we should have to pay for that. So I got working with the tiler, and on the next set of tenders, there was 3 tenders on the go, by the way, in this example. I got him to put 3 bullet point guarantees on the top of every tender document. And they said, I guarantee if my guys are late, you'll get that individual job for free. I guarantee that if my guys make a mess, I'll pay for the cleaner and you'll get that individual job for free. And I guarantee that if my guys damage your property in any way, shape or form, I'll pay for it to be made good and you will get that individual job for free. Now, at the same time, I asked the tiler to put his price up by 35% more than he would have ever dreamt of doing. Now, what do you think he first said to me? You don't have to repeat it, there's ladies on this call. You can imagine. But to his credit, he came round after a while to understand the science that I was trying to communicate with him and that I was trying to teach him. And he understood what it was that I've been harping on about just now to you guys. So he sent the 3 tenders off. In a, for anybody that knows it, house building, construction in general, fantastically price competitive. 3 tender documents, 35% higher than anybody would ever have gone in within his wildest dreams, with 3 bullet point guarantees. He won, ladies and gentlemen, 2 out of 3 of those jobs. So if price is the issue, how's that possible? You see, we've got to go beyond this. We have to understand what people's fears are of doing business with us. Most people will continue doing business with a bad supplier because they think better the devil. Well, we've got to highlight to them how we're going to remove that risk, because that's what guarantee does, remember? Reduces risk and increases trust. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, hang on a minute, that's going to bankrupt me if I give that guarantee. Well, listen, for goodness sakes, whatever you do, you're not going to give a guarantee that you can't honour. We have to build systems and processes that allow us to deliver on this guarantee. And if we mess up, if we don't deliver on that guarantee, then we bloody well should pay out. Absolutely we should. And by the way, folks, the statistic to remember to give you some reassurance is less than 1 in 1,000 people claim on a guarantee. Less than 1 in 1,000. So what we have to do, as I said, is get under the skin of our customers, our prospects, see what it is that's stopping them from making that decision with us and see how we can guarantee that so that they have got no risk. They've got no risk. I mean, who here would go to a dentist that guaranteed no pain? Well, unless you're psychotic and you like pain, of course. But that dentist guarantees no pain, but charges 30–40%, more than any other dentist, because he understands what people's fear is of going to a dentist. I mean, once I coached a legal practice. Billy might smile when he hears me say this. 2 of their solicitors, who were commercial solicitors like Billy, said that if we're going through something with you, especially boring terms and conditions, sorry, Billy, I'm sure you'll tell us how exciting it is in a minute, but if you're going through a meeting with you, and we're going through T's and C's or anything, and you yawn, we'll take you out for lunch to say sorry. Guarantee it, you won't yawn. And again, look, that wasn't anything serious for those of you in regulated industries like Billy, anybody else, so then you have to maybe have a bit of fun with it. But it's what they became known as in the local area. People go, oh yeah, they're the ones that take you for lunch if you yawn, It's just something to give people so they're not looking at price. That's the key point. So how can we create uniqueness in what we do? And ultimately, how can we guarantee against it to move away from that horrible bloodbath of price competition? Now, the other thing, one thing I'm going to do with you at Growth is to blow another myth out of the water. The myth that says every customer is king. No, they're not. What I want to prove is there's 4 ways of segmenting your customer base. Your A grades are the best of the best. They are the ones that never haggle on price. They always pay you on time. They send you referrals, they write you testimonials. They're an absolute joy. When you finish talking to an A grade, you're full of the joys of spring. You've got spring in your step, everyone's happy. Now your B grades, your Bs aren't as forthcoming with the referrals, but they're good solid customers. They might haggle every now and again on price. Every now and again, they might be late on paying, but they're good solid customers. Then, ladies and gentlemen, we have our Cs. Now, our Cs will haggle on price most times, and most times they'll be late with paying. And then we have our Ds, the worst of the worst. They always haggle on price. They are always your worst payers. They throw in fictitious complaints just to delay having to pay their invoices. They always only ever want to speak to the boss. They go out of their way to badmouth you. And typically when you finish or your team finish talking with a D, you can be in floods of tears. They are the worst of the worst. Some of you, I hope, are thinking who those A's are and who those D's are. And what I'm going to prove to you is that you do not need your D grade customers. You see, what I'm going to do is get you to understand the numbers, understand how much profit do we make when we're dealing with a D grade client. And what I'm going to prove to you is every single transaction you have with a D grade client is done at a loss, because we're going to factor in all of our costs, in particular, your time. Because remember, they only ever want to speak to you. So we've got to apportion your costs somewhere. And what we'll find, just the hard numbers, is that every transaction is done at a loss. But what about all of the intangible costs? What about that horrible feeling you have all day before you have to call that person? You know, that sick feeling you have in the pit of your stomach. What about when they finish a call and they have one of your team members crying, and how that affects the entire atmosphere in your office all day, or your place of work, should I say? So we don't need our D grade clients. Now, if you sacked your D grade clients, would your sales go down? Absolutely they would, because you're not getting that sale. However bad it was, you're not getting it. But here's what happens to profitability. Sometimes upwards of 800% increases in profitability. So we've got to get rid of the D grade clients. Now, your C's, you can potentially re-educate them to upgrade them. You can, with a bit of education, with a new rules of the game being communicated. Look, this is how we're going to do business from now on. If you're happy to do business that way, brilliant. We'd love to keep you as a customer. If not, here's a selection of providers that you may want to start using. But here's how we're going to do it, okay? But here's what we've got to understand. That 80% of our business, folks, comes from 20% of our customers. Directly or indirectly through referrals, our A's and our B's. Now, let me ask you a question. Are those 20% of customers that are responsible for 80% of your business, are they getting 80% of your time, your love, your care, your attention? No. Are they even getting 20% of your love, care, and attention? No. This 20% of your customers who are the bedrock of your business, responsible for 80% of your business, that 20% of customers are lucky if they get 5% of your time. Because guess what? Where's all your time spent? Helping people, dealing with people that lose you money. Let that one sink in for a minute. Where is the logic in this, folks? It cannot continue. It is killing our business. It's killing our morale. It's killing our energy. And it's killing our business because our profitability is being dragged through the floor. We have to get rid of our D-grade. I know it's counterintuitive. I know we're told that every customer is king. No, they're not. As I said earlier, we have got to understand that we should be dealing with the people that make us money. Now, let me ask you another question, folks. You know those 20% of people that already love you? They send you referrals, they rave, they're your raving fans, they're brilliant. Is it possible that if you were more front of mind, they'd send you even more business? Absolutely it is. That's where we should be spending our time, with our A's and B's. With our A's and B's, by the way, the best way of getting rid of D-grade clients, keep putting the price up. Keep putting the price up until they finally go. Once I was coaching a furniture manufacturer, and they had a client, they made high-end armchairs and sofas, upholstery company, and they had one client on the south coast of England who literally would just return pretty much 90% of items, even though there was nothing wrong with them. And by the time they'd come back with all the damages in transit and all that kind of stuff, most of that was fit just to be thrown away. And at one point, I think we'd increased the price by 800%. And then they finally stopped, because in that time, at least it was worth our while from a cost perspective. But the other thing is, imagine going back to your team and saying, guys, you know, because that person swore at you or shouted at you or was rude, and we're not working with them anymore. Is it possible that if you told your team that, the emotional bank balance could get some deposits in your favor from your team? Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And our business is better, our lives are better, everybody wins by getting rid of the D-grade clients. So let's go through the A, B, C, D grading exercise. Let's see where our clients are. Let's give more love and attention to our A's and B's. Let's get to know where their birthdays are. Let's take them out for lunch. Let's give them the VIP treatment, because everybody likes to be treated like a VIP, and we'll get even more business from them, and we'll improve the quality of our lives and our businesses. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm still in growth. I've got lots more to talk to you about in growth. But what I'm going to do next for the next section is I'm going to introduce Billy to everybody. Billy from Rotheras is going to tell you a little bit more about their business and particular T's and C's around this incredibly important time to be 100% on clued up and on top of everything that we need to as business owners. So, Billy, are you there?
I am. Thank you very much.
Over to you.
Thank you very much. How do I follow that? That was a really, really passionate presentation. I really enjoyed watching that. And now I'm going to follow it with T's and C's, which I think, as Jazz pointed out, it might not seem the most riveting of subjects. And I'm certainly not going to give the guarantee that I'll take you out for lunch if you yawn, but I'll try not to make you yawn. Guys, if you can move on to the next slide, please. So my name's Billy. I'm from Rotheras Solicitors. I'm in the corporate and commercial team at Rotheras. So my day-to-day is anything from the day-to-day business side of a commercial entity right to the company itself, the corporate structure, buying and selling businesses. But today, of course, I'm talking to you about terms and conditions of business and why they're important, particularly in this day and age. So this slide is about the introduction to T's and C's. Why do businesses use standard terms and conditions? And there's many reasons, as it says on that slide there. First of all, speed and efficiency. If you've got a contract in place with a customer, be that a customer that you're giving a service to or a customer that you're supplying goods to, if you've got a contract in place with that person that needs to be renegotiated every time that they put an order in, if they put many orders in, that's going to lead to a long time spent negotiating contracts. It also leads into the next point, which is consistency, meaning that all contracts are inconsistent. And finally, the third point there, which is cost. Every time you renegotiate a contract, you might want to expend, money instructing people like me to look over those contracts. If you've got standard terms of business in place that suit your business model, that are practical, that reflect the reality, and that are, they're your terms of business, they're commercial, that there's no need to expend that cost every time. You just have them reviewed. Also, clarity. I always think it's important that your team knows what it says in your terms of business. I think that's really important, particularly your sales teams. And it's because when people call to discuss your terms with you, they can actually speak about what's in your terms. The team should know. It's difficult if there's no written contract in place or if there's a bespoke contract to let your team know exactly what every term, says. Moving on, cash flow and credit control. Obviously, you can put terms in your terms and conditions that address cash flow and credit control and that address things such as, payment terms and all that sort of thing. And then sixth, which is something that I'll move on to later, is allocation of risk in relation to your goods or services. I'm going to go through some tips. So I've got 10 tips. That's how this presentation is structured about your terms and conditions. So if Jazz, if you can move on to the next slide, that'd be great. Tip one, reflect the reality. The last thing that you want is to just have a standard set of terms and conditions in place that don't reflect the reality. Something that you've downloaded off the internet that don't reflect your business position and don't reflect your business processes. What that leads to is you doing something that's inconsistent with the terms and conditions, and the cutest of clients and customers will shout up and say, actually, that's not in your terms of business. But also it leads to contracts, you may be making yourself liable to perform obligations that you wouldn't usually perform. Make sure that it's absolutely crystal that what you're doing is reflecting the reality in your terms and conditions. So that'll be things such as payment terms, invoices, how you give notices, and at what point the contract's formed. Is the contract formed? Do you request somebody to send you an email asking for a purchase order? You then accept it. At that point, is the contract formed? Does somebody come in store? That all needs to be displayed in your terms and conditions. Next slide, please, Jad. Adopt clarity and avoid ambiguity. We get a bad rap as lawyers for making, things really wordy and complex. Actually, it's probably quite unfair that we get that reputation. What we try and do is make sure that the clauses are clear. Sometimes they become long and they become complex to read or look at, but what we're trying to adopt is clarity. What clarity, then the benefit that you get from clarity then is that all your terms and conditions can be understood by yourself, can be understood by your consumers and customers, and there's just no ambiguity. There's no argument as to what your terms of business say, if in the unfortunate event that argument needs to be had. So yeah, adopt clarity. That's tip 2. If I can move on to the next slide, please, Jazz. Tip 3, allocation of risk and ownership. So I mentioned this as one of the reasons why you'd want to have terms and conditions in place, is that you can allocate risk and ownership. So risk and ownership are two different things. And what I'll do here is use the example of somebody who supplies goods, because it's just easy to do it that way. If you supply goods, business to business contract, to another business, you will want ownership to pass at a late point, so at the point when they've paid your invoice, the point in which you've been paid. However, you might want risk to pass at a different point. The law really passes them both at the same time. If you've not got standard terms and conditions in place, that might lead to an undesirable outcome, in that, you know, if ownership passes, so does risk, and that means that risk might pass at a late time. So consider a point where you've got credit terms in place. You know, you supply goods, and at some point later down the line, say 30 days, they then pay for those goods. If, you know, risk passes with the ownership, risk passes at that late time, does that mean then that the risk associated with those goods being lost or damaged or stolen, passes at that late point? Now, you want it in your terms and conditions, you want it unequivocal and clear that risk passes at an early point, no later than on delivery, when they're in the control of the customer. And that's only reasonable if you are expending those sorts of terms. It's only reasonable to require that. Next slide, please, Justin. So slide number 4, limiting your liability. And in your terms and conditions, you've got the opportunity to limit your liability to some extent, to make sure that your liability under a contract is limited. So be that because you're a supplier or because you're a customer of a supplier, your liability under that contract you can try and limit. Now, there is a statutory framework, and rightfully so, that you can't limit your liability to a point which is unreasonable. And that's only right because obviously we rely on that sort of thing to make sure that business and commerce moves fairly and properly. But you can limit your liability in relation to certain things. What you can't limit your liability in relation to is things such as limiting your liability to personal injury or fraud or things like that. But there are other things. But you might want to limit your liability in relation to a time limit. So if somebody's got a complaint and they want to bring a claim, you might want to say, right, you've got to raise that complaint within this amount of time. You've got to raise it properly by giving notice to us, and only, you know, then will we potentially be liable, because at that point you've been given the opportunity to try and deal with that customer. You might want to limit your value, and you can limit your value in many ways. Obviously, you'll want it to be reasonable, otherwise it's not commercial to your customers. But you can limit your value in many ways. I've seen people limit the value to be in line with the value of their insurance, and how much their insurance will cover them for. But I've seen other people limit the value to the value of the purchase order, for example. That's another reasonable limit. And you can also limit your type of loss. And I think this is very important. If you limit your losses, if you limit your liability to only direct losses of your customers under this contract, then you're making it less likely that you're going to be liable for any consequential and indirect losses, such as loss of profits and that sort of thing. So I think that's quite an important point to bear in mind when you're limiting liability. Limitation of liability, as I say, it does sit within a statutory framework, but it is possible to make sure that where you have a contract with somebody, you can limit your liability to an extent which is reasonable in the commercial sphere that you sit yourself in. Next slide, please, Jazz. So tip 5, and it comes onto that commerciality point that I was talking about just previously. Consider the industry that you're in and when terms will be commercially acceptable. The last thing that you want to do, I'm a lawyer, I'm risk averse. What I'll be saying to you is make sure that your terms and conditions are watertight and make sure that you're protected. You know, that's what I'll be saying. And that's what I'll advise. But obviously, I've got to keep in the back of my mind that I'm a commercial lawyer, and there's always a commercial element to this. What the other side of the contract, be that your supplier, be that your customer, is not going to accept is you writing in the contract, you know, for this purchase order, you've got to do X, Y, Z, you've got to sell me your soul. You've got to make your terms and conditions commercial. Otherwise, you might lose business to some extent. What I'm not saying, don't mistake me, what I'm not saying is give up all your protection, not at all. But if you go overboard on that, point, then you may find that people just don't want to do business on your terms, because of course it may be unrealistic to expect them to do so. So that's the point in relation to the commerciality behind everything. But of course, the key point really is to make sure that you're protected above all, but really consider the industry that you sit yourself in and consider what would be commercially acceptable to the people that you contract with. If I can move to the next slide, please. This is key in the current circumstances. So in the current circumstances, as you know, there's been a lot of businesses who may have had issues with performing their contractual obligations for whatever reason. And you might have seen this term, it's a bit of legal French. You might have seen this term in the news. It's force majeure, and it's all about when an event comes along that's beyond the control of the parties, that prevents one or both or the other of the parties from being able to perform their contractual obligations. If there's a clause in the contract that provides a remedy for these circumstances, then what you can do at that point is try and rely on that clause to excuse yourself from performing those obligations, depending on how the clause is drafted. So that's force majeure. If there's no clause in the contract, so I've had clients coming up to me and saying, what do you think of this? Can I rely on force majeure? If there's no clause in your contract, you can't rely on it. That's it, bottom line. There may be other legal points that you can rely on, such as frustration of contract, but it's very, very difficult, very technical, and very hard to rely on. This is probably your best bet when you're thinking about the difference between force majeure and frustration. When you're drafting a clause like this, first of all, what I'd say is it's very technical. I'd always advise that you should get this looked over by a lawyer or have a lawyer draft it. It might even be cheaper to do that. But what you should be thinking about is, what are the force majeure events? What are the events that come into play that create a force majeure event? Now, in the current circumstances, for example, what people will be looking for in their contracts is wording such as pandemic, epidemic, worldwide disease, government action, things like that. It would have taken a very forward-thinking lawyer a year ago to have put in that force majeure clause, coronavirus, Covid-19. I wouldn't say it'd be expected to find it in there, but you might find pandemic, epidemic, government action, which would cover the circumstances. You then want to think about what effect these would have on the performance of your obligations. What effect does that event have on the performance of your obligations? Does it mean that you can't perform your obligations? Are you suspended from performing your obligations? Is it creating a timeline between, a point in which you can perform your obligations? So take the idea of a builder who's building a house and rain comes along, floods the foundations, and it means that the building can't carry on until the foundations have dried out. I'm not in the industry. I might have got that completely wrong, but humour me. Does it mean that that particular contract is suspended altogether, completely excused from your obligations, or would it be more reasonable for it to just suspend the time in which you've got to perform your obligations until such a time in which the foundations dry out, building can start again? As I say, this is a technical area. You should have these clauses looked over by a lawyer, or have a lawyer draft these clauses at the very least, to make sure that you are protected by them, really. But as I say, important in these current times. You can move on to the next slide, please, Jazz. The next slide is dispute resolution clauses. Where you are in a dispute, somebody raises a complaint about the services that you've offered under a contract. What a dispute resolution clause aims to do is it aims to govern the process in which the other side of that contract, or yourself, in fact, can take when raising that complaint or claim under the contract. So what that means is, instead of one party thinking, right, I've got a claim in this contract, I'm going to court. I'm going to court, and we're all going to be in court. We're going to battle this out, which is costly, time-consuming and stressful. My dispute resolution colleagues won't thank me for saying that, but I'm sure they would, because they appreciate the fact that there's always a benefit to an early resolution, which is less cost-effective, more cost-effective, more time-effective, and less stressful. What a dispute resolution clause might include is some obligation to try and resolve this between yourselves. And if you can't do that within 7 days, try and go to mediation, and only at that point can you go to the court. Now, that's the idea behind a dispute resolution clause, and they can fit within your terms and conditions as well. So the idea being behind them is that they will save money, save time, and hopefully save a lot of stress in the process as well. If we can move on to the next slide, please, Jazz. Tip 8, this is all about incorporation. This is a very important point, and one that I can't stress enough. Bring the terms and conditions to the other party's attention at the earliest possible opportunity. So the earliest possible opportunity is the point in which there is potentially an inquiry, or the point in which the point in which the inquiry is raised, the point in which the purchase offer is made to you before acceptance. But the key point here is that it's before the contract is formed, before you accept that offer. And also, it's a good idea as well to keep reminding them of these terms and conditions throughout the course of the process. I've had clients come to me and say that they show their standard terms and conditions on the back of the invoice. The invoice being a post-contractual document, being a document that's shown to your customers after a contract's been entered into. At that point, unless you've shown the terms and conditions before to your customers, it's too late. You'll not be operating on those terms and conditions. The law wouldn't allow it. If it goes to the courts, there's no chance unless you've shown them to your customers before. Bringing them to the attention, don't be ambiguous about it. Keep reminding them of the terms and conditions, to a reasonable extent, and you won't go far wrong. Key point is make sure that they've seen the terms and conditions, they know they're there before the contract's entered into. There's a whole lot of case law behind this, and it's not one that you want to find yourself at the doors of the court about, really. It's key. We'll move on to the next slide, please, Jazz. Tip 9, update your terms and conditions regularly. So your business practices may change as and when your business develops, or as and when your team develops and new ideas come into the business. Not only that, but the law and the legal landscape behind your terms and conditions may change, and so it's important to have your terms and conditions reviewed. I would say probably once a year. Just have them reviewed by the person who drafted them, or keep them reviewed, review them with your team, seek legal advice on them, make sure that they're legally compliant and they actually suit your business practices. Because as I say, things do change, whether it's the law or whether it's your business practices. Tip 9, keep your terms and conditions under regular review. If we can move on to the next slide, please, Jess. And finally, tip 10. Take specialist advice. There's a lot to consider about terms and conditions. There's a lot which would form part of your terms and conditions which you might not have actually thought about in the first instance. And it's the people who do this day to day, the people like myself and other lawyers, who will be able to point out things that you might want to include in your terms and conditions, and also might want to include in the terms and conditions that you've drafted that we review. So either have your terms and conditions reviewed by a lawyer, or preferably have a lawyer draft your terms and conditions. What we do at Rotheras is we draft clear, fully compliant terms and conditions, but mainly, which is what I think is probably key to it, is we have your business at the forefront of our minds. When I meet you, I'll sit down, I'll talk to you about your business, about your processes, and I won't just knock out a standard set of terms and conditions. It will be about your business. We offer highly competitive rates, and I'm always happy to have a chat, no obligation, about your terms and conditions. So if that seems like it would be a benefit to you, please don't hesitate to get in touch. My number's been on every slide. That's our marketing department for you. And I'll welcome a chat at no obligation. I think my next slide is about questions, but I think unless anybody's got any burning question, I don't mind answering them, but I think we're running into a break, and I will be around at the end anyway. I see Jazz nodding there, so I will be around at the end anyway to answer any questions. So thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope you didn't yawn.
I don't think we did, Billy. That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. I took so much from that. I know clients that have suffered substantial financial losses because their terms and conditions were not enough, and it's too late to then be stress testing them in litigation. So please, folks, be proactive here. I'll say the same about your accountant. as the likes of Paul, I say the likes of Billy, I say the likes of your bank. You should be keeping conversations with those people in your power group, because they need to know where you're at, not just when you need help. So thank you, Billy. And yes, we're going to take all the questions at the end, folks. So I hope everyone's got value so far from the first session this morning, and the brain can only handle as much as the bladder. So we're going to have a break. We are going to have about 7 minutes, folks. I'm going to be generous today. So at 10 past 10, we're going to restart. I'm going to kick off on time. We're still in growth. I've got loads more to throw at you, loads more thoughts to get going. Remember, at the end of today, you're going to get the link as well with the recording in this. I forgot to mention that. And you'll have Billy's details and Paul's details in the email that link is going to be in as well. So guys, go and get a break, stretch your legs. I was going to say go and get some sunshine, but that's going to be a big ask. And I'll see you back ready to go at 10 past 10. Thank you. To, in that very short space of time, get a reasonable comfort break. Let's continue. I've got to remind where we're at. We're at growth. And sorry, a bit of housekeeping before that. Folks, please keep the chat until the end so that we're not distracting anybody. All of us might see it otherwise. So let's have that section for questions at the end, if we may. So let's continue. I believe this is the most important part of growth, and it's a secret I'm going to share with you, that if you get this, you'll know more than 95% of other business people, especially your competitors. You see, it goes on the premise that there's two fundamentally different cars there, a Ford and a Jaguar. Two fundamentally different cars, but with one fundamental thing in common. That is that they sit on the same chassis. And every business on earth sits on the same chassis. And if you can understand this chassis, you're going to have more power than anybody else. And the chassis looks like this. Now, most people I come across say, Jazz, I want more customers, I want more revenues, and I want more profits. And if you look at the formula down the left-hand side of the slide, you'll see that those three things I mentioned are in blue, and they each have an equal sign before them. You see, those three things cannot be directly influenced. They are outputs. What we can influence are the 5 things in black: the number of leads, how good we are at converting them, how often we get people to come back, how much we get them to buy, and how much profit we make off each one of them. Now, one of the most powerful lessons within this is that there's a myth that states that the only way I can grow my business is by bringing in new leads. Well, unless you're a brand new business, then what I'm going to prove to you today is that there is 4 other ways that you can increase your business, typically that aren't going to cost you a penny, before you even look at lead generation. Just for reference, when I'm working with a client, a new client, I normally look at profit margins first, conversion rate second, average value third, number of transactions fourth, and lead generation last, because typically lead generation may require investment. And surely, if we're going to invest one of our hard-earned pounds into marketing, we want it to be able to trickle all the way down to the bottom, to profits, where it matters most. If you did lead generation first without trying to maximize the other 4 areas, it's like trying to fill the bath with a plug hole out. Why would you do that? And what I want to show you is that there's 4 other areas that aren't going to cost you a penny to start working. And if you start working them and start making minor improvements, that's when you're going to see the real secret here and about the difference it will make to your business. So now, I said I'll do them in a funky sequence. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through them top down for the purposes of today's presentation. And the way that I normally do them is by going through each one of them and giving you loads of different examples. Time is of the essence today, so we don't have that luxury. What we're going to do instead is go through each one with case studies, okay? So the first one I want to share with you is Kay and Steve from Coots Farm Shop. For anyone that knows Coots Farm Shop, off the A6 as you head north from Derby. And my favorite lead generation strategy above everything else, there is things like referrals, which I'm a big believer in, but strategic alliances. Let me explain what that means. Who do you know that's got the same target market as you, but is not in competition with you? And how can you form a mutually beneficial relationship? How can you approach somebody that's got 100 of the types of customers that you're looking for, rather than trying to find each one of those 100 separately? Start thinking strategically, not tactically. So here's what Kay and Steve did. It's Kay more than Steve in this instance. Kay approached an independent hairdressing salon in the East Midlands, more Derbyshire way. And she said, she approached the head, they had 7 branches around the area. And she said, is it okay if we leave this beautifully produced A5 postcard size flyer in your salons to say that if they bring that, if the salon clients bring that postcard with them to Coots Farm Shop, they can have a free cup of tea and a slice of cake? Now, the salon owners loved it, loved the fact that it made it look like they were providing something for their clients in the salons. But it wasn't going to cost them a penny. It was not going to cost them a penny. And the way that it was worded was as though they were actually subsidizing it, but they weren't. Now, Kay and Steve knew their numbers. They knew that a cup of tea and a slice of cake was going to cost this. But they also knew that on average, when somebody walks in, you can just see it actually there at the back of the picture. There's a doorway at the back, somebody with a yellow jacket on. You had to walk through the shop where these guys are standing into the cafe and the tea rooms. So what was happening, well, typically with strategic alliances, you don't make money on the first purchase, but what you've got to realize is that you'll get them back, you'll get their details, they'll come back, and then you'll start to make profit off them. But in this instance, this was a bit of a quirk, even better. When they came to redeem their cup of tea and slice of cake, their free cup of tea and slice of cake, they had to walk through the shop, and what we found was pretty much every single person bought something as well, or lots of things. So we were making money from that first visit. But then the beauty was that we've got them. They had to bring that postcard with them. On the back of the postcard, they had to put their details on it. So now we've got their details to be able to market to get them back for future visits with lifetime values of goodness knows what. But for an investment of, I think we worked it out for the 250 that redeemed it straight away, and it's probably more like 500 now. It cost us, well, it required an investment, should I say, of £600. So, you know, to get 250 new people in the door with a lifetime value of, I can't remember what, because that's another important number that we need to understand, for an investment of just £600 is absolutely phenomenal. I challenge anybody to come up with a better return on investment. See, that's the beauty of thinking strategically. You know, how about a health food store and a gymnasium? You know, are you not on this webinar today by virtue of a strategic partnership I have with Wren Accountancy and Rotheras? Of course, that's how I generate inquiries into my business. This is all we've done for the last 10 years. Typically, I'm in a room with you, but obviously circumstances dictate that we're doing it on this platform. But that's all we do. We buddy up with accountants, solicitors, and banks. And we're not in competition, but we've got the same kind of customers. See, Kay was very clear on this. She approached a high-end hairdressing salon chain. So you knew that they were the kind of customers they were looking for. So stop thinking tactically, folks. Start thinking strategically. And what you're looking for is the win-win. How can you form a mutually beneficial relationship? You see, the salon could have said, well, what's in it for us? And we'll say, well, it's emotional bank balance and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, they could have very easily said, and we would have done it if they'd have said it, we want to leave our flyers at your tea rooms, at your farm shop. And we would have done it. It's got to be mutually beneficial, okay? So think about strategic alliances. Now, the next one was also about lead generation, and it was about, this is Cook's Furnishing in Birmingham Way. And what James was doing when I first met him was investing more than £400,000 a year in marketing. That's James on the left, taking over from his father-in-law who started the business. Anyway, James was investing £400,000 a year in marketing. And what I did when I was working with James was got to really get him to analyse who's buying, who's actually buying from them. And what we worked out was two distinct categories, the over 60s and your kind of mid 40s, the professionals with high disposable income, because this is a high-end furniture retailer. And instead of marketing to everybody, we just started, we stopped a lot of the spend that was just generic, because unfortunately too many people, and James would testify to this when I first got with him, their marketing was scattergun. It was just anyone and everything. Now that is very, very expensive, and it doesn't really yield you good results. Surely it makes sense to be much more targeted in what you're doing. Now this is a retail example where we identified those A and B grade clients, and we, as you can see from the slide, resulted in saving £75,000 a year in that £400,000 a year marketing spend. But if they're in a B2C environment, if you're in a B2B environment, I believe that you have an even greater advantage, because you can now target one individual in a business down to that one individual. You know, you have that information at your fingertips, and the more targeted you are, the better the response. The more targeted, the better the response. And I'm talking down to the one individual. As I said, I'm talking hundreds of letters. You know, I'm not talking about generic stuff, just blanket mailings. No, I'm saying, hey, Bob, I noticed that your bakery is doing really well. It's great. You know, you've got to really talk about that one individual, so they'll make it, so they'll understand that you're not just doing blanket marketing. And that's what we did in a slightly different way, guys. The most important part of marketing before you do anything is understanding who the target market is. It's the most important thing. And in this example, it saved Cook's Furnishings £75,000 a year in their marketing spend. Now, There's no point in getting them to be interested if we then can't get them to buy, if we suck at selling. And that's where conversion rate comes in next, conversion rate. And this is Andy and Laura. They sell high-end hot tubs. They are on the A6, away from where we are, towards Leicester. And what these guys were doing, were getting people in, but then failing on what I believe is the most important thing in sales, and that's following up. Following up. If you want to increase your conversion rate immediately, you've got to start following up. You've got to start following up. By the way, the thing I love about conversion rate is whatever percentage we increase your conversion rate by is what we increase your business by. And if you want a 10% increase in your conversion rate today, the best bit of advice I'm going to give you today is start to measure it. Because you can't manage what you don't measure, and whatever you shine a light on will grow and expand. It's like a haulage company that told their drivers, hey drivers, from next week, we're going to start monitoring miles per gallon. And guess what happened to miles per gallon? You know, because people knew it was being focused on. So that was the first thing. But what we did here was something really, really simple. Start following up. We increased the conversion rate by 25%. We increased their business by 25%. And I appreciate this is a retail example. For those of you in B2B environments, even more important, a couple of things around quotes. You've got to turn around a quote immediately. That's the key. You will drive your conversion rate by minimum 10% by turning around your quote immediately. And then you've got to do exactly what Andy and Laura did. You've got to follow up. And what we found, folks, what all the science has proven, is that you have to ask for the sale on average 5 times. And unfortunately, too many people, once they've followed up, found out that the person doesn't want to go ahead. That's it. No, we also need a medium to long-term follow-up process that's going to keep touching these people, keep checking in with them to see if they want to go ahead. Because in sales, ladies and gentlemen, because that's what conversion rate is, by the way, sales. In sales, no means not right now. Not right now. So what we've got to do, these were a hot prospect. So why are we saying no? We're not going to bother following up just because they said no once. So let's keep following up. You can automate these things now through emails. You can make sure you're staying front of mind so that on average, the 5th time, they're going to go, actually, you know what? I'm glad that you kept in touch because we never went ahead with XYZ project, but could you quote me this? Now, that's not cost us anything. It's just about keeping in touch and following up. Let's move on to the next one. This is number of transactions. What does that mean? Well, how often can we get people to come back? See, it's 6 times cheaper to get your existing customers to come back and to buy again than it is to go and buy new customers. And here's another statistic for you folks. 68% of customers leave a business because of something called perceived indifference. Perceived indifference. They think that you don't care anymore. They think that you've started taking their business for granted. And that is about keeping in touch, not just keeping in touch to say thank you for paying their invoice, but keeping in touch. I don't care who this client is. You could be now visualizing your A-grade client right now, thinking they'll never leave me. But let me tell you, over a period of time, they will turn around and go, especially if somebody starts to market to them and shows them the love, they'll think, well, you know what? I'm moving. And we've lost them. And that is criminal because that is the bare minimum. And the reason we don't do this, we don't keep in touch with our clients, because remember, we're spending all our time with D-grade clients. So what did Roger do? Roger's only just literally around the corner from me. I'm taking my car to him tomorrow, actually. Roger, I coached over 10 years ago. What did Roger do? He didn't just assume, this is the other thing, if they want something, they will come. No. There was plenty of people that were coming to Roger's garage and they weren't coming again the following year for an MOT. They were going somewhere else. Or they weren't coming for their next service. They were going somewhere else. What did we do? We just sent an SMS system. SMS system a month before. By the way, remember, you're due for an MOT or you're due for a service. Sometimes we would also follow up as well with a phone call. But look what it did to his sales. 58% increase in sales, just for something as simple as not assuming that they're going to come back by staying front of mind. Yes, we've done all the stuff, like putting posts on social media, like sending newsletters, giving value, staying in front of people. But the key thing that really got it was that we made sure that we were in touch and we weren't assuming anything. Let's move on. Average value sale. Average value sale. How much are they spending when they do buy from us? And the bit that I want to draw your attention to here, ladies and gentlemen, is, do you want fries with that? Do you want fries with that? Now, that one question makes McDonald's, at the last count, £50 million a day in global sales. £50 million. Now, 30% of people who say yes to, go on then, I'll have fries, had no intention of buying fries. But because they were asked, I'll tell you what, I'll go to the next slide and then I'll come back to it. Because they were asked, they decided, yeah, go on then. And here's the thing, the same 30% ratio applies to every business on earth, as it did to Alex and Chris. Clients of mine and my landlords in our local pub here in Longbottom, the Royal Oak, these two have got a lot to answer for. What did they do? They got everybody making sure that on every conversation, they asked the question, whether it was at a table, do you want extra vegetables? Do you want this? At the bar, do you want to double up? What do you want to do? And here's all we did. By that, do you want fries with that question? We increased the average value sale by 18 pence. 18 pence doesn't seem like much, but when it's multiplied over multiple transactions, it was responsible for over £21,000 extra a year. That's the power. That's the power of asking, and you're going to see the power overall in a minute when I go back to the formula. But listen, here's the thing with average value sale. You can do it, and a couple of others can do it, but if you don't do it all the time and everyone doesn't do it, then it doesn't make the difference that it really could. So we've all got to go and ask ourselves, every business has got it. Do you want fries with that? And sometimes it doesn't even have to be something that you offer. I showed you Roger a minute ago. Well, when Roger was servicing somebody's car, and he noticed that there was a big dent in one of the doors, he would send them to the body shop guy down the road, Darren. And if Darren was knocking some dents out of somebody's car and noticed a service light was on, he would send them to Roger, and they gave each other a 5% finder's fee. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be what you do. Okay, but another big one of average value sale, whoops, going the wrong way. Let's go back. Let me go back to this one. This was the first slide, actually. Let's go back to this one. Another way of influencing average value sale is pricing. And this is an incredibly emotive subject. And I said it at the start when we were talking about USPs and guarantees and how some people would say that I don't understand their industry. And the gentleman on the right of this picture, David, some of you may know Becky and David from RS Print. David was, and he'll put his own admission, will tell you, he was very, very resistant to this. Print in particular over the last 10 to 15 years has been absolutely decimated in our country, as it has been globally. And David was very, very resistant to this. But after a couple of years of doing a load of other stuff, he finally had the mindset shift and said, right, okay, we're worth this. We are worth it. We give so much, and I'm going to put my price up by 10%. Nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. Instead, the business grew by 18%. And here's the thing I'm going to tell you all now about pricing. If you haven't put your price up by 10% in the last year, then if you do it today, here's what will happen. Even in this current climate, here's what will happen. 1% of people will leave you. And guess which grade of client they are? Yes, okay, they're your Ds, okay? Some people will have a little chunter about it under their breaths, and then they'll get on with it. But here's the other amazing things that will happen. Some people, by the way, will come up to you and say, whisper in your ear, I wondered when you were going to do that. I've got no idea how you stayed in business for this long. But here's the most strangest thing that will happen. You'll get busier. You'll get busier. This is the weirdest thing, because who is prepared to admit that they've lost business because they were too cheap? You know, it's happened. It happens because perceived value still plays a part in the purchasing decision. So there is a multitude of reasons for increasing prices. I feel so passionately about this one, ladies and gentlemen, because I can work with people for years on end and I won't make a blind bit of difference to their businesses or their lives, because fundamentally their pricing model is totally wrong. And the other thing I beg you to understand is that if I was giving out advice and people were following my advice and they were falling flat on their faces, then I wouldn't be in business that long. And this is my bread and butter. I know I've got other businesses, but this is our bread and butter. And therefore, what I'm saying to you, I'm coming completely, like I have with everything else I've said, from a point of, from the heart. This stuff works. It's been backed up. It's been validated. And I feel really passionate about helping people. but they're not going to help themselves if their pricing is always one of fear. And the rule of thumb that I need you to remember, folks, is this. If 10% of your customers are not complaining about your price, it means you're too expensive. I'm going to say that again. If 10% of your customers are not complaining about your price, it means you're too cheap. Did I say too expensive a minute ago? I meant you're too cheap, okay? So I'll give you a story about a joiner many, many years ago in the northwest of England, being coached by a good friend of mine, Graham. This joiner's name was Martin. Martin made high-end kitchens by hand, top end. I'm talking six-figure sometimes deals, okay, but normally 5. Top end, and he'd worked. Martin was in his mid-50s, and he'd worked in this business since he left school. It was his business. He'd literally worked his fingers to the bone, never made a penny. So my colleague Graham got working with him, and Graham said, look, Martin, talk like I've just mentioned about pricing, told him about the 10% threshold. And Martin, to his credit, realized he had nothing else to lose. He was so down, he was so out by never making a penny. He said, well, I'm going to do this anyway. So he did it. 7 weeks later, during a coaching session, Martin, the joiner, says to Graham, the coach, he said, oh, Graham, this week we passed that 10% threshold of people complaining about price. And Graham was really confused. Graham said, hang on a minute. We put the price up 7 weeks ago. How come that's only just happened now? Well, what had happened, ladies and gentlemen, was Martin, the joiner, had misheard. He thought Graham had said, put your price up by 10% every week. Every week. And 7 weeks later, when his price was now 100% higher than what it was originally, he crossed the 10% threshold of people complaining. How far was he out on his pricing? How many years had he worked without giving himself a chance of making a living out of this? So it's really important that we understand. And by the way, when I say 10%, I'm not just plucking that number out of the air. I have a matrix that you're welcome to that tells you if this is your margin, you can afford to increase your price by this, and you'll only lose this many customers. And if you don't lose that many, you're still going to be better off profit-wise. Okay, so that's why pricing is so important. Guys, please, we have more of an issue with pricing than our clients, and I beg you to take the leap of faith and price what you're worth. Price what you're worth. It breaks my heart when people don't get what it is that they're worth. So let us continue. I think I've had my Excel blowout. Let me just see if I can just quit that. Let me just see if I can get that. Let's see. Yep, it's definitely crashed. So let me just see. How do I get out of that? So let me see. Just bear with me, folks. I won't be too long. Yes, so I'll come out of Excel. I hope I'm still got you guys all here with me. Let me just get rid of that, and I will bring us back on in a second. I did say that this would happen. Let me just go back here. Just bear with me, folks. I'm just rebooting my PowerPoint back up. I won't be long. I'm just going to, let me just get, what's going on here? Okie dokie, right, we might be able to get back on. Just, so, Angela, are you still with me? Okie dokie, just bear with me, folks. Let me go back here. I'm just going to make sure that the screen share is still working because that can sometimes get thrown out. Let me just double check. Angela, if I can have screen share back, if that would be okay. Let me just take it back off, Angela. And I'll put screen share back on because I don't want you just looking at a blank screen. Okie dokie, right. So let me then give Angela the host back, if I may. I can't find, here we go. Let me just make host. And then let me bring my screen back. So, Angela, can you see my screen? Brilliant, thank you. Sorry about that, guys. So we were talking about pricing. Now we've got to go to profit margins. And on the flip side of pricing is discounting. The matrix that I was just referring to before we had our IT outage was If you put your price up, you can afford to lose this much. Well, there's another matrix, identical, that says that if you discount by this much, you lose this much, and you have to do that much more in sales in order to recover the margin that you've given away. And that's what, again, we did with James, who you saw earlier on. You see, a lazy person can make their sales by discounting. And what we went to work with their 30-odd sales staff was to give them the tools that they needed to stop discounting, And look what we did to profitability. In a really hard sector, by the way, guys, retail in any aspect. They had their best year. They're 75 years old, by the way, and their best year ever by stopping discounting. So again, what are we doing to stop throwing that margin away? We talked about USPs and guarantees. So let's talk about the focus on margin. Richard from Skillbase, some of you might use Skillbase. Remember, you can't manage what you don't measure. And what we did here was we really got them to focus on the numbers, produce their numbers every single week, analyze them, discuss them, shared them with the team. And that's not an exaggeration at the bottom, folks. 500% increase in profitability. Focus on the numbers, get to understand them like we talked about at Money Mastery. So I went through each of those 5 areas, guys, and I want to go back to the formula. And what I want to do is I just want to show you the impact on if you increased each one of them by a minimal amount. In this example, it's going to be 10%. And what I want to do is I want to put some numbers in there. Okay, I want to put some round numbers in there to give it a little bit of context. And I want to give it some background. Let's say it's a dog kennels business. Why do I say dogs? Because dogs have leads, don't they? I didn't profess to be a comedian anyway. And this is a snapshot of numbers over a year. In that year, they had 4,000 dog owners interested in leaving their dogs with them. And they managed to convince 1 out of 4 of them to leave their dogs with them, which left them with 1,000 paying customers at the end of the year. Now, the next 2 are averages. On average, their dog owners came back twice a year. Now, some of them might have came back every week, every month. Some of them might have only come once. We never heard from them again. But we found the average was 2. And as was the next one. The next one's an average. How much did they spend? Some people came in for a dog toy, spent a £5. Some people might have spent 100, 200, 500 pounds a month. But we found the average was 100 pounds. That left us with revenues of 200,000. We found that the average margin per transaction was 25%, which left us with profits of £50,000. I hope those nice, easy, round numbers are okay to digest. Now, I've just shown you some case studies on how we could increase in each one of those areas. So let's go through this and see what would happen with a 10% increase in 5 key areas. Let's say we were to put into Get Place a strategic partnership with a pet food store. Let's say we left our flyers at each other's places of work. Let's say we did do a referral scheme and we managed to get our number of inquiries up by just 10% in a year. Now let's show that we follow up. We also show people that sales is a process. Sales is about breaking something down into minor pieces and focusing on the principle of marginal gains, making minor improvements and moving our conversion rate up to 27.5. I've got hundreds of strategies, by the way, to increase conversion rates. My personal favorite in this whole formula. What does that do to number of customers? It increases them to 1,210. Let's continue. Let's say we did start to send people a newsletter every week or month. Let's say we did keep in touch more often with people and we increased the number of transactions by 10%. Ladies and gentlemen, in this example, it's only 1 extra visit in 5 years. Let's say we did start to put, do you want fries with that? Let's say we did start to say, when you come to collect your dog, we do a shampooing service. It's a tenner. Let's say we managed to increase the average value sale by £10. What does that do to revenues? Well, it doesn't move them to £220,000, ladies and gentlemen. It moves them to £292,000, not 220. Let's go on. Let's say that you haven't put your price up for 7 years. By the way, remember, all your costs have continued to go up. And I managed to coach you to put your price up by just 10%. What does that do to the most important number at the bottom of this formula? Well, it doesn't move it from 50 to 55,000, ladies and gentlemen. That moves it from 50 to 80,500 pounds. You're watching now the power of compounding, divide to multiply, call it whatever you like. When you break a process down and you make minor improvements, then you stick it back together. The synergistic impact is what you're viewing now. There are no smoke and mirrors, folks. You can do these numbers yourselves. You can plug in your numbers and see what would happen with a 10% improvement. Now, the key thing is, some people might think, well, I can't improve certain areas by 10%. What I've got, like, for example, Martin the joiner that I just mentioned in the pricing story. Well, if you can't, you know, some people aren't going to buy a high-end kitchen more than once a year. Some may, but the vast majority won't. Well, it's 10% as an average across all 5. Some of them you might be able to increase more. Some of them you might be able to increase less. If you're already working from a low base, let me tell you what you will do. You'll be increasing these by 3 figures. You'll be increasing them by more than 100%. But look what happens, ladies and gentlemen. Instead of saying that all I need to do is bring in new business, if I got to work on those other 4 areas, the impact on the business is absolutely out of this world. It's like nothing else. So instead of saying I need to do more marketing, more business, focus on those other 4 areas. The strategy I just shared with you didn't cost us a penny. Didn't cost us a penny. And for those of you that deal in percentages, there it is in that one simple, very conservative example. That was a 46% increase in revenues, but more importantly, a 61% increase in profitability, just for going to work on 5 key areas. Now, here's the thing. I've been teaching now for 13 and a half years, folks. I don't think it's particularly extraordinary. But I appreciate that in business, when we're deep in the mire, when we can't see the wood for the trees, we can't see the simplicity of this. And I believe business is really simple. It's us that complicate things. But I don't think that formula was extraordinary. And as the third wealthiest man on earth said, you don't need to be extraordinary to be successful. You really don't. I'm a massive believer in that. But here's the thing. 13 and a half years of teaching this. Thousands and thousands of people have heard me say this presentation. But I know that 98% of you after today will go back to doing exactly what you've always done. Putting out fires, being in the business, being reactive. And that's the real killer for me. Because I can lead a horse to water, but I sure as hell can't make it drink. Folks, I'm sharing something with you that 95%, especially your competitors, don't understand a thing about. Go and use it. Make it your competitive advantage. Play it to your advantage. Folks, please start working on these areas. Start working on your business, not in it. That's what you've got to start to do. So there was quite a bit in growth. It straddled the brakes, okay? So hopefully there's enough to get people moving on things that they need to do. Things like no price competition, USP and guarantee, ABCD grading exercise, all of the 5 ways. I can spend 3 years I've spent with one client and we haven't even got to lead generation on the 5 ways. We've just been maxing out all of the other 4 areas, sometimes extracting more than £100,000 extra profit from the business every single year. You know, it's not going to be one of those things you just do in 1 week. So I hope that's given plenty of food for thought for growth. Let's now move on to leverage. Let's move on to making this thing scale now. And this is the real key. Those people that understand leverage are the ones that, surprisingly enough, seem to have the greatest successes. Leverage is about more for less. Divide to multiply is another phrase, or marginal gains, as we were talking about earlier on. Leverage is making systems do the work so that you don't have to. And one of the overriding principles on leverage, ladies and gentlemen, is do the work once, get paid back forever. Do the work once, get paid back forever. And for me, where that comes from is systems and processes. Systems and processes. And here's my challenge for all of you today. I want you to task yourself from today onwards with writing 1 key thing that happens in your business regularly. And when you're going to write it down, I want you to write it down to keystroke level. And I'm talking idiot-proof it. So an idiot has got to come into your business and run that process without asking you a question. You see, the thing is, all of the people on this call have got millions and millions of pounds worth of value in their heads. But unfortunately, it's destined to stay there and not pay them back if they don't get it out of their heads and get other people doing the work for them. And that's the real lesson I want to teach here, is to set ourselves an objective of writing something out, a routine thing that happens in our business every single week. Now, when I say writing, it doesn't have to just be writing. In fact, I'm moving much more away from writing out systems and processes now. I believe a lot more people they can interact better with systems and processes if they are videoed, if they are photographed. But the real breakthrough that I've only had this year, if I'm being honest with you folks, maybe I'm a little bit behind on technology, I shouldn't be, but I have been in this instance, has been screen recordings. These are an absolute game changer. Now, obviously you can't screen record every process and system that happens in your business. Some of them, it might not have anything to do with a computer system or something that happens online. But for those things that do, You're going to save yourself so much time. It's going to blow your mind that you start to do screen recordings. If you're using a Mac, it's in QuickTime Player. If you're using a Windows machine, it's in, I think it's in the Xbox app. I think it's in there. You can start recording your screen and you can start talking and you can start doing the routine task and it's getting recorded. The aim is to build that library of how-to manuals. This is how we run the business. I talked about the franchise model earlier. This is what we're going to build now, and the value that you're going to get back from this is impossible for me to quantify for you. Remember, do the work once, get paid back forever. Screen recordings, folks. A couple of weeks ago, funny enough, a client of mine, they set themselves an hour to write out one process. It was invoicing, and decided to just listen to what I was harping on about. Decided to screen record it as well. He told me it took him 90 seconds to record it rather than an hour to format a Word document, put screenshots in there, put arrows in there, then put supporting text. No, screen recording, done, 90 seconds. And that's the real value, folks. Do the work once, get paid back forever, because then what you can do is get other people following those instructions. Follow the instructions. And remember, it's got to be done in a way that if you give it to somebody and they have to ask you a question about how to do it, then it hasn't worked. It has not worked. It's got to be done in a way that you do the work once and you get paid back forever with your time. But here's the other thing, folks, with writing out systems and processes. It adds incredible value to your business. You see, I mentioned earlier on that most people have only ever got a job. Well, one of my first clients, they wanted to retire when I first got working with them, and they had been made an offer for their business. And they turned it down. We got working with them. And in the first year, we did loads of good stuff, increasing the order book, doing loads of other stuff. But one of the things that we really focused on was a how-to manual. And literally 12 months later, they were offered 2.3 times more, because that's what people want. They want the how-to manual. They want to know how to run that. They don't want you. You could get hit by a bus the day after they buy the business from you. You know, they don't want you. They want a how-to manual. You will add immeasurable value to your business by starting to document it. Another story for you. This happened in the last 6 months, folks. A client of mine, an engineering company in Leicestershire, been working with them for about 4 years. They'd wanted to sell, and they sold about 12 months ago. They sold about 12 months ago. And part of the deal, as it typically is with commercial transactions of this nature, is that the previous owners stay in to do the handover for a certain period of time. This was 12 months. And my client was really not looking forward to 12 months. It's just like when an employee hands their notice in. You know, Elvis has already kind of left the building. But took a deep intake of breath and thought, well, you know what? It's 1 year and then I'll be out. Well, my client went in on that first day, on that first Monday after the sale had concluded. And at midday, he was told by the new owners that they didn't need him. By midday, on the first day of potentially 365 days of handover, he was told he wasn't needed. So he saved himself 364 and a half days of his life by, over those years that we've been working together, document absolutely everything that happens. Everything that happens. Folks, the power and the value in this, like I said, is immeasurable. For those of you working in bespoke areas, people say to me, Jazz, you know, I deal with a lot of creative, I deal with a lot of design businesses. They say, well, you can't write that out. You can't capture that. And I totally understand that. But what I want you to also embrace then, if that is your business, is the principle of case studies. Is that every project you do from this day onwards, start recording it. Record every aspect of it, from the initial design meeting or the concept meeting into design, you know, into production, whatever it is. Start recording it and create, once again, a set of case studies that new people joining your business or existing ones can watch in their own time, and then they can add it back value-wise to our business. So I hope, again, very, very quickly, I've got you thinking about the importance of writing stuff down. And the way that I teach it, I talked about the how-to manuals, but I teach systemization in a 3-step process, folks. Firstly, you've got to process map everything in your business. You've got to map it all out, how it all works, because that in itself will show you where all the breaks are, where things always fail. And then that will also tell you what how-to manuals you've got to write or record. How-to manuals I mentioned, but then nothing, the process flows and the how-to manuals will not be followed. They'll make a blind bit of difference to your business if everyone doesn't have a checklist. Everyone in a business should have a checklist. If you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about what you have done and what you haven't done, that's because you've got it all in your head. You wouldn't let a pilot take the plane off without checking their checklist. So why are you trying to run a business, which I'm not a pilot, but I'd like to think a business is infinitely more complex. Why are you trying to run a business without a checklist? You know, we've got to move away from a people dependency to system dependency. Picture this, folks. Somebody calls in sick. Typically, we go into a flap thinking, what are they supposed to do? What are they going to let down if we don't do it? Well, imagine walking to that person's desk, seeing their checklist stuck to their desk, looking down the day, let's say it's today, it was a Thursday, seeing the fact that they had 4 things that they had to do definitely on a Thursday, looking down each one of them and saying, right, that one, right, there's the how-to manual. Okay, this is how we do it. Done. Tick the box. Next one, there's the how-to manual. This is how we do it. Done. Imagine that. Imagine that. Now, some of you have got people in your business that have got a lot of information and knowledge in their heads. That is an incredibly dangerous position to be in, because those people can hold us over a barrel, can't they, folks? So we've got to get that information out of their heads to make our business much more systems dependent and not people dependent. So again, just a high level overview of leverage. And then we're going to come to team. Team, in the cycle, it's my favorite because I'm a big believer in people. I really am a big believer in people. Who thinks this is true? Well, who thinks this bit's true then instead? So listen, I am an old romantic. I do think that people want to do a good job. I genuinely, passionately believe that. But I believe our job as managers and leaders is to give people the environment and the tools that they need to be able to excel in their roles. Now, I'm not daft. I'm not naive. I'm not living in cloud cuckoo land to think that there isn't exceptions to that, because there is. But the vast majority of people, I believe, want to do a good job. And the way that I address the team aspect is through the 16 steps to a world-class team. Because I believe that most people are managing or mismanaging people through themselves, their personality, their mood, and their energy on that in any given moment. And I believe that the most important word in management is consistency. And there is no way that we can be consistent if that's how we're managing, because like I said, we could have had a row with our spouse or our partner that morning. Somebody could have cut us up on the way to work. You know, a car could have got a puncture, and we're going to be in a bad mood. So there's no way we can be consistent. What we need is a system to manage the people as well. And this 16 steps here is that system. And I'm only going to touch upon a few of them. Don't be overwhelmed by this. This, again, takes time to put into place. Because I'm a big believer, by the way, that in correlations, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that there's a direct correlation between the amount of quality time we give our people and the results that we get back. Unfortunately, what I find is most people treat people as a number on a spreadsheet, and we're only not going to get the great results if that's how we think about people, because if that's how we think about them, that's how we're going to treat them, and that's how we're going to approach this entire section. We'll get out of them what we put in. Our people either make our life very easy or very hard. So I'm just going to go over a few of them, because I think they'll be able to hopefully give people the light bulb moments that they need to start working on. Let's look at the first 3. It starts on the left-hand side, guys, with vision, mission, and culture. Vision is about that statement of intent. Where are we going? Where are we going? It sets a standard. It says, right, this is what we're all about. This is what we are all about, okay? This is where we're going. Now, the mission is a little bit more detail around that, but the one I wanted to major on was the culture, or values. It is vital that by the way, vision, mission, and values, the big corporates give this bit a really bad rap. They talk about the vision and the mission, we've got these values, and this is what we do. And then you ask somebody that works there about the values, and they give you this blank expression going, what are you talking about, values? Got no idea what you mean. You know, if we're going to do this, we have to do this to understand this is a system to help us manage people, okay? So let's go to the values. Once we've defined them, we make them visible, and there's a way to define them, which I'll talk you through. We put them all visible around us in the workplace. So let's go to an example, a typical example before we have our values, ladies and gentlemen. Let's say you as the owner or the senior person walks into the office or place of work one day and noticed somebody has left their lunch from yesterday, half-eaten sandwiches on the table, empty packet of crisps scattered everywhere, coffee cup half tipped over, photocopying paper scattered all across the floor. And let's say you hit the roof. Let's say you say, what is this all about? This is unacceptable. Well, what that now does is create a conflict between what you think is right and what they think is right. Whereas if one of our values was professionalism, for argument's sake, or to be the best such and such company, whatever it may be, and you've got that plastered all on the walls, then all you do in that situation is you walk in, you observe, and you point to the wall and you say, how does that fit with that? How does that fit with, for example, let's say one of your values was excellence. Tell me what your interpretation of excellence is. See, now, you're not saying what your view is. You're using a system. The system is what we agreed as a team. And anybody, by the way, joining that business from that day onwards has to sign up to this, otherwise they're not allowed to join. So now you've got some reassurance that everybody's going to be on the same page. So vision, mission, and values, culture is absolutely key. Probably the bit that I wanted to major on was the bit in the middle. Starting right at the bottom, roles and responsibilities, KPIs, one-to-ones, and performance management. Otherwise known as dead wood. Dead wood. Folks, I coach a lot of business owners with very strong personalities and a very, very clear way of how to do things and how not to do things. So sometimes I've got to be firm, sometimes we've got to compromise. But there is one time where I'm not going to budge, and that is dead wood. There isn't many laws of the universe that are so black and white, but let me give you this one. Not one business I've ever seen has ever achieved its objectives holding on to people that are not performing. Not one, there is not one exception. People try to think they'll be the exception, and then 7 years later, they decide to finally take action. And that is about getting rid of people that are not performing. They are not performing. Some people say to me, Jazz, I've got a team of 10. Oh, it's only one of them that's a bad egg. The other 9 are absolutely brilliant. Well, let me ask you a question. You know those other 9 that you think are brilliant? How long is it going to be till they see one of their colleague, that one, come in every single day and get away with it? How long is it going to be till they start to become effective, till they become disenfranchised, till they say, well, what's the use? What's the point? And now you're going to have 10 headaches instead of just one. And I know the biggest reason why people don't want to deal with this. It's fear. It's fear of HR, the law, all of this kind of stuff. And on these sessions where I can see everybody and we're in a room, and there sometimes can be employment solicitors in the room, I'll ask the question, is the law not weighted massively in favor of the employee at this moment in time? And everybody agrees it is. But that is not a reason to not deal with people. I'm telling you now, it is rotting your business from the inside. No good ever comes from holding on to these people. None whatsoever. So let me tell you then, when I was in the corporate world, I had to dismiss 17 people. 17 is a number that's etched on my brain. 17 gut-wrenching experiences where it's never a nice thing to do to have to dismiss somebody. But 17 times where I could have ended up in employment tribunal, but didn't. Why? Because I followed the process. Now, in the corporate world, we had HR departments and all that kind of stuff. I get it. But we've got all of that stuff around us now. You can subscribe to these services all the time. They will guide you the right way. And I can tell you what the right way is now. Firstly, everybody with clearly defined roles and responsibilities. But the key bit is the KPIs, key performance indicators, measures of their role and what you expect them to do. You see, if you sack somebody for not doing a good job because you thought that was clear, and that's the only KPI you've given them, to do a good job, and they take you to employment tribunal, you will lose, and you will lose royally, because you have to make it clear. So you have to say, I need you to do 6 of those every single day. Now that is a KPI. But what holds it all together, probably the whole of the performance management slice down the middle of this, is the one-to-ones. Every single individual in a business should have a monthly one-to-one. For those of you that annual appraisal, stop, don't do it anymore. It serves no purpose whatsoever. You're just killing loads of trees with that pile of paper you have to go through. That makes no sense. People forget what they had for breakfast that day, never mind that last year that you're asking them to review with you. I believe everybody in the first week of every month should have a one-to-one to review the previous month. Now, if you've got salespeople, by the way, that should be every week, because a month is a long time for a salesperson to go and have a bad time and you not to know about it. But in that one-to-one, what we're doing more importantly is we're documenting everything. We're documenting what we're talking about. Listen, Bob, you didn't sell 6, you only sold 4. What else can we do to help? Because you know it's your KPI. Well, Jazz, you know you need to send me on the training course. And I says, okay, that's brilliant. So Jazz to send Bob on training course, and so on and so on. Because remember, if we dismiss somebody, folks, from an integrity perspective, we have to be able to look ourselves in the eyes and know that we did everything humanly possible to help that person achieve their objectives. But if after we've done all of that, what we have to remember is this is not a daycare center for adults. This is a business, and livelihoods are at risk here. You know, we can, as I said, it's not a nice thing, or we can think about that individual, but what about all of the other livelihoods that are going to go down the drain if you don't deal with that individual? I know it's hard. I know it's hard. But this is one bit that I just can't stomach. I can't let it pass. I can't, guys. It's crippling you. And if it's me that has to be the bad guy to take you out of your comfort zone and make you do it, so be it, because I only want your result, and your result is never going to be achieved by handing over to me. It's kind of like you're trying to floor the gas. You've got the engine screeching, you've got the smoke coming out of the exhaust, the wheels are spinning, making smoke, burning rubber, but someone's got the handbrake up. And that's exactly what happens. That's exactly what happens. So dead wood, performance management. Some of you might be feeling uncomfortable now. Some people say, well, what would happen if that person left? I ask you a better question. What happens if that person stays? That's a more powerful question. Are you ever going to get to where it was you wanted to get to? And what I'm also finding is a lot of people are finding out who that dead wood is over the last few months. When we've needed people to step up, people have shown their true colours, good and bad, unfortunately. And we should be using this as an opportunity now to press the reset button. And I'm not doing this without any compassion. I'm dealing, these are human beings here. This is their livelihoods. But as I said earlier, what about yours and the rest of the business and the team and everything else, okay? So there's just, again, a few things for you to think about around team. What I will do very quickly, just mention the one on the right-hand side, common goal. The power that we create, ladies and gentlemen, when everybody is joined up and pointing one way is huge. See, some business people say to me, well, I've got the goal now. And I ask them, have you shared it with the team? And they haven't. Because they're expecting their team to understand what it is they're doing. And they're managing through telepathy. Has anyone ever done that before? They should get this. This is obvious. No, it's not. We have to give everybody a commonality of purpose. You see, if we switch a torch on, the light dissipates like so. But how come with focus, that same light can cut through metal? Imagine the power that would run through your team and your business if everybody had one objective. They were all lined up behind you, pointing towards in the same direction. The power is, it's unbelievable. It's unstoppable, if I'm being honest. And again, a lot of business people say, I don't want to share the goals with them because they're going to think I'm greedy or I want to make too much money or whatever it may be. And I say, well, if that's what your people think, they shouldn't be in your business because they haven't got the right values. They haven't got the right values, okay? So just some things to think about with regards to team. So what I've done now, ladies and gentlemen, is I've gone round the entire cycle. Mastery, getting the foundations, growth, the marketing and the sales, especially the 5 ways, the systems and processes. Start today, folks. There's nothing stopping you. And then team and dealing with dead wood in particular and creating an environment conducive to excellence. So what we have now is systems running the business, people running the systems, and you just leading the people or bringing in a general manager to take care of the people for you. But what you also have now is a business education for life that's repeatable across any type of business on earth. My businesses vary greatly, folks. One of my businesses sells baby products online. How much does that vary from business coaching? But I use the exact same principles, some of them which I've shared with you today because I can only scratch the surface in today's short space of time, but they're exactly the same principles. And this man seems to agree. And he has got a bit of a track record about him, so I am kind of inclined to listen. And the other thing that I've noticed recently, folks, with COVID-19 has been a lot of people had all their eggs in one basket. All of our income was dependent on one business. And thankfully, what it started to do with a lot of my clients anyway, because I pushed them to do it, is to create multiple streams of income. You've got to start replicating this stuff so that if something goes bad over there, you've got some other eggs in other baskets. It's the exact same principles. That's the bit that I'm at pains to stress. So I hope this has added value. What I would like to do next is just very quickly whiz through the kind of things that we do, folks. I want to talk about one-to-one coaching, something called planning days, and something called Reach Club, which, as I said, I think is going to be an absolute game changer. So what's business coaching? Well, fundamentally, folks, it's a personal relationship. This is the one-to-one coaching that I'm referring to. This is about us sitting down and working out what it is that you want. You see, for a lot of business people, they've forgotten what that is. They forgot the reason why they started up in business, because when the licks started to come, when the setbacks started to happen, all of that went out the window, and all they were doing was just making sure they survived. And that isn't good enough. You deserve so much more than that. And a lot of those fires have been quashed over time, and we need to reignite them, because the business should be giving you what it is that you want, not the other way around. It's about putting you at the head of it and saying, right now, the business needs to deliver X, Y, and Z because that's what I want. And a lot of business people are very uncomfortable with that because it sounds selfish. Well, let me tell you something. Selfish is the healthiest state that we can ever be in. Because if we're okay, if our needs are being met, then it means we can help so many more people. Our families, our friends, our teams, our customers, our communities, our suppliers, you know, our churches, our charities, whatever it may be, if we're okay. I mean, you know, when you're on the aeroplane and they say, if there's an emergency and the oxygen mask comes down, even if you have a child, who's are you supposed to put on first? Your own. Absolutely. So then you can help others. So it's about putting you first. And then once we know what it is that you want, then we can put the plan into place based on roughly what you've just seen me talk about today to help you deliver that. The issue that we face in coaching in general, coaching's been in the UK for about 15 years now, business coaching, people think that it's a sign of failure to have to ask for help. And that's heartbreaking for me to hear, because nobody knows it all. Nobody knows it all. And if anybody says they know it all, run a mile. People think it's a sign of failure. Well, let me tell you something. More than 50% of the people that I ever work with are flying. They're doing absolutely fine. They just want more control. Maybe they want to get to their exit quicker. Whatever it may be, they're flying. So there's this myth that business coaching is only for businesses that are struggling. No. But approximately just under half of them are struggling. Of course they are. So please understand that no one knows it all. We all need help. It's lonely being in business. Who's your sounding board? Who have you got to confide in, both personally and professionally? Because most people don't want to take it home. They don't want to share it with their teams. Who have they got to speak to? Nobody. So then it all starts to become a jumbled up mess in here. So you need a sounding board as well. And for those of you in family businesses or husband and wife businesses, I'm also offer marriage guidance, which typically is what it becomes, because the business places a tremendous pressure upon our personal relationships. I'm there to give you knowledge, absolutely, so you don't have to ferret around trying to find what it is you need to find. But more importantly, it's the arm around the shoulder or the kick up the backside. I much prefer the arm around the shoulder, because who's your cheerleader? Who's telling you you're doing a good job? Because we only get told of the bad stuff. So that's what coaching is in a very, very high level. And look, less than 1 in 200 people are self-coaching. People think they can do it. As I gave you a statistic earlier on with the 5 ways, only 2% will even go and touch the 5 ways after today. It's why I have my own coach. All of my businesses are profitable tremendously well, but I still have a coach to be able to make sure that I've got my sounding board, to make sure that somebody holds me accountable to do what it is that I have to do to keep moving forward. So that's what coaching is. So let me tell you about the different ways that we do that. One-to-one coaching, that's the more intense. That's not for everybody. That's for the businesses that can cash flow it, that want to get there quicker, that want that more intense relationship. The intense relationship starts with a half-day alignment session, where we're going to sit down on Zoom now and go through what it is that you want, what I just talked about there. And once it's all documented, I document it, or you're going to rubber stamp it and say, yes, Jazz, that's what I want to achieve. See, I will not coach anybody without them telling me what they want from this relationship. That's wrong. It's unprofessional, it's lacking integrity, because everything that I do from that day onwards is designed to hit that result and nothing else. So you have to tell me what the GPS coordinates are, where we're going. And once we've got that, we're good to start. Now, the investment for that is a standalone session, folks. Fundamental prerequisite to the coaching is £2,497 plus VAT. I'm not going to coach without it. Once we've got that, we know what we're doing. And then we move every fortnight to our coaching sessions over Zoom. And the fortnightly coaching ranges from anything from £1,197 plus VAT to £4,500 plus VAT. See, some people want me to coach their senior managers. Some people, there's more than 1 or 2 directors. It's not a one-size-fits-all. What we have to do is, if you're interested in one-to-one coaching, we have to have a little bit more of a chat, just to firstly see if there's a fit, a values fit. Secondly, we need to make sure what package it is that may be right or wrong for you. So there is another stage for one-to-one coaching, and I'll tell you more about that, and if you're interested in it, what you need to do later. Now, I talked about planning days. So here's what we bring to the table with planning days. Well, firstly, Reach planning days are included in all of the one-to-one coaching packages, okay? But here's what we bring to the table. We show you what I believe is our #1 asset, and that is our community. Our community. A set of 80, sometimes 100 like-minded business people in the room with the express intention of sharing with each other. Just sharing. See, if you haven't been exposed to people like this, and when we're in business and totally isolated, it can feel quite lonely, and it can feel as though everyone's out to get us. So we become very guarded. Well, one of our values is abundance, not scarcity. It's abundant. And in this room, all you've got is people helping each other. You know, there's similar businesses in the room. There is similar businesses in the room. Tell me where else you would find 2 printers in a room, where one of them would stand up and say, I need help with this. And the other one would say, hey, let's get together next week for a day. Come and see me and I'll go through it with you. That, I don't know of anywhere else that it happened. Well, Becky, who you saw on one of the slides earlier from RS Print, was that person that stood up and said, can I get some up? And Chris from Saw Valley Press, who some of you may or may not heard of, and Chris said, yeah, come and spend some time with me. I'll help you. The abundance that we have is like nothing else that I know. So everyone stops dead for a whole day. We have time to reflect, we have time to catch our breath, to review the previous quarter and think about what we need to do in the next quarter as we keep moving forwards on that 12-month journey, that 5-year journey, whatever it may be that we defined in the alignment session. Now, the investment, if you want to just come and try that out, well, at the very earliest, you're not going to be able to try this until September, folks, because everything's being done on Zoom at the moment in a shortened format. But if you want to come and see what it's all about, what this lunatic keeps talking about, then it's £297 plus that. That's for everything, for the day, the food, the drink, the materials, the whole lot, okay? But it gives you a framework to start planning and start structuring the way that you're developing. But the thing that, if anyone's interested in any form of coaching, if it's not one-to-one, I strongly suggest you look at Reach Club. You see, when COVID-19 hit, it was pretty much at the start of March, I kind of turned around and I realized how many people were struggling, because it's been bloody scary, folks. It's been scary. I hope you all agree with me how scary it's been. And my frustration, my sadness was that my time was my limiting factor, the fact that I could only coach the people on a one-to-one basis. So I went to work, and in 6 weeks, I took 13 and a half years worth of material that I've coached, and I turned it into an online membership site. I did that in 6 weeks. Most people tell me it takes 18 months, but they do say necessity is the mother of invention. So what I've done is I've put everything that you've seen today, the high level of what you've seen today, put into absolute detail. You see, a lot of people teach you about the what and the why. What I'm going to give you with Reach Club is the how, and I do it in my one-to-one as well. But in Reach Club, you're going to get it how. Every single fortnight, you're going to get a new module released. Following the cycle of business success, it starts with the alignment session. Then it's about mastery, all of the aspects of mastery that we talked about. Then we're going to go through growth. Then we're going to go to systems and processes. Then we're going to go through team. That entire process is going to take 20 months to go through. Every single fortnight, a new module with how-to videos, and then all of the templates next to them as well. So you're not making this up. These are specific templates that have been used in the past that work, so you can start running with them. As well as that, because it's cohorts, it's every single month, it's a new cohort. So we only launched it on Monday this week. So June 2020 is the first cohort. So those guys are already live. They've already had their first module released. So the next one is the 6th of July. That's the Monday, the 6th of July. So every single month with your cohort, you're going to have me for an hour to go through what we've just released that previous month, to answer questions, to make sure that if there's any idiosyncrasies with your business, we can iron them out, and to be able to feel part of something. You'll also be part of the dedicated Facebook group we have, which again is worth its weight in gold, to be able to ask people questions. Now, I value what I've put into Reach Club. It would normally take an investment of about £35,000 to acquire that level of knowledge. Here's the thing. I'm pricing this to require an investment of £177 plus that a month. You heard it, 177. I've got to be very careful, by the way, when I talk about this, because it makes me sound like a double glazing salesman. But I feel so passionate about this. I cannot stress how much of a game changer this is, because it has literally got everything from start to finish that you're ever going to need to reestablish control of your business and get to where it is you want to get to, wherever that may be, okay? But here's the thing, you might be still thinking, well, what's that all about? Well, I've removed another obstacle. You get your first month for £1. I can't make it any more risk-free. I don't know of anything out there on the market that is going to give the how the way this does. And as I said, you've got me on the Zoom call, you've got your cohort, you've got everybody else on the package. I think it's a phenomenal package. I really do. It's £177 plus about a month. I'm going to show you how you can sign up to this immediately, so you're in the July cohort. You might even still look at some of those numbers. And by the way, if you're looking at £177 plus that, even in this current climate, and you're thinking, I hope, please, folks, don't be offended. That's not my style. If you're thinking you can't afford that, then I've got to ask you a question. You've got to really think about, if you can't afford £177 investment in your number one asset, yourself, should you be in business if you can't afford that? There's got to be, if you're that close to the edge, you've got to maybe do some more deeper thinking about where you are in your business and whether it's right for you. But what price are you going to put on education? What price are you going to follow other people? Again, if you look at the biographies of successful people, what do they say? They say, I just copy the other people that are doing that and I just follow what they're doing. Well, that's what you're going to get with any coaching package. You know, if I was in a battlefield of war and I saw a minefield there and I saw somebody's footprints that have already walked through that battlefield and got to the minefield and got to the other side, well, I don't know about you, but I'm not going to risk it. I'm just going to go where they've put their feet. And that's what coaching is. That's what you're investing in. You're investing in that, but also your development, especially your mindset. That's where I see the biggest changes in my clients, is how they develop as people, because then the coaching has a massive impact on their home life as well, all for the better. Some of you are going to be feeling really excited right now. Some of you are going to be feeling very scared. If you're feeling any of those feelings, brilliant. It's a really, really good sign. It's the decisions that you make in the future, ladies and gentlemen, that don't invoke any emotions. They're not going to make any difference to your life. So if you're feeling some kind of emotion, it's going to be a good decision, I promise you, okay? Not the best example to have up on the slide anymore, but the golfer of his generation says, when I'm taking my shot, I can't see my swing. I cannot see my swing. Somebody needs to tell me what I'm doing, and that's what I do every single fortnight. I take my clients out of what they're doing, make them look down and say, are we still on track? That's what coaching is. Now, special offers, again, I've got to be careful, it's not double glazing. However, what I want to do is to just acknowledge, firstly, the fact that you've given your time today. It shows that you're not an I know person, you are somebody that's interested in personal development. So why would I not want to reward that? This is also a testament to my relationship with Wren Accountancy and Rotheras. So if you decide Reach Planning Days for you, that 1 day, 90-day planning session where you're going to come and meet all of my other clients, probably at the very earliest in September, let us know, and you guys can have that for £247 plus VAT. Okay, that's my offer to you guys today. But I was talking about Reach Club earlier, and I was saying how it was £177 plus VAT. Well, let me just remove another obstacle for you. Through my relationship with Paul and Ravi at Wren, we've arranged for you guys to get a special rate, okay, a special rate. You guys are going to get it. Again, sometimes when I say it, I feel as though I'm undervaluing it. £123.90 plus VAT a month. Remember, you're still getting your first month free, okay? All you need to do, and Angela is going to be sending you the link if she hasn't already sent you in the chat box right now to the landing page for you to go and sign up for the July cohort, is enter Wren30 when you go to the checkout. Enter Wren30, and your investment after your first month of £1 is going to be £123.90 plus VAT a month. And I calculate that over the course of Reach Club, that's going to require an investment of £2,355 to get everything that was going to normally require an investment of at least £35,000. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. You're saving £53, £10 plus VAT a month by entering the code WREN30. It's only for the people that were on this call that have shown their commitment to want to move forward. It's not that you, because we know who's on this call. If somebody else joins it, we're going to have to cancel it because they weren't on this call. It's for those people that were on this call, ladies and gentlemen. If you decide that one-to-one coaching is something you want to talk about, I'll tell you how to do that in a minute. Then that alignment session that we did, that was 2497 plus VAT, you showing me your commitment, I'm showing you mine. We're going to do it for 1997 plus VAT. But let me just add another caveat in there. When I've automated everything and put everything electronic, here's a choice you have for the alignment session. You can do it yourself with step-by-step instructions instead of me sitting with you for half a day. You're going to go through the entire process yourself. That requires an investment of £497 plus VAT. So your choice for the alignment session, if one-to-one coaching is important to you, is either do it with me for half a day for 1997 plus VAT, or do it electronically with detailed how-to videos, exactly step-by-step like I would do with you, but for requiring an investment of £497 plus VAT. So, got to practice what you preach, ladies and gentlemen. Everything that I do, and I mean everything that I do, is backed by guarantees, okay? So here's what they are. If you come to planning day in September, and if you turn around to me at lunchtime and say, Jazz, what a load of nonsense. What is this rubbish? Then not only will I write you a check out for how much you've invested in a day, £247 plus VAT, I'm also going to write you another check for £250 to say sorry from the bottom of my heart for wasting half of your day, okay? But you have to tell me at lunchtime. Now, the big one. Reach Club, one-to-one coaching. So for both of these packages, ladies and gentlemen, and anything that I do, we don't have any contracts. I'm sure Billy's going to be now getting really, really agitated and very concerned. But I found that coaching is a relationship, ladies and gentlemen, and to tie somebody in contractually, you know, especially when it comes to minimum term, is very hard. You know, we need to make sure that we can work together. So for Reach Club, okay, There isn't a contract. You can stop anytime you want. I wouldn't advise it because you're going to miss out on all of the other stuff that's coming. And if you drop, you have to go all the way back to the start again. So just follow it through. Okay? I'm only looking for people that want to follow through. I'm not a quick fix guy, by the way. If you want to do your business and you want it to work properly once, then do it this way. But if you stay on, if you do the tasks, okay, if you join the Zoom calls, by the way, just like this call, the Zoom calls, if you can't make them, you get the recording given to you so you can review it. But if you do the work, okay, you will get a return on investment guaranteed on your bottom line. So just for reference, that's £2,355 over 20 months, okay, on your bottom line. If you don't, I have to give you back the difference. So I'm literally guaranteeing you a return on investment. I could not make it any clearer. And by the way, just for reference, if I can't show you how to make £2,355 extra over 20 months, I really should hang up my gloves and just go and do something else. And pretty much the same thing applies to one-to-one coaching, but this is even bigger. If you do what you said you were going to do when you were going to do it, bearing in mind, I'm going to give you everything you need, including in Reach Club, the same thing. I'm going to give you absolutely everything you need to succeed. Both the tangible and the intangible, with the mindset stuff, the passion that I've got behind me to get you to where you want to get to. If you meet me halfway and just do the work, and remember, I'm not the consultant, I'm the coach, you will get a return on investment guaranteed on your bottom line. Again, I don't know any coach in the UK that does bottom line. Some do it on sales, some do it on gross profit. I'm doing it on bottom line where I believe it matters. Okay, I'm putting myself out there at risk. Okay, because that would be quite a big amount of money over a 12-month period. Bearing in mind, you don't sign any contract, but I need a bit of time, folks, sometimes to correct some of the craziness that I find that you've done. But if you give me 12 months minimum, my average client stays with me for about 5 years. If you give me 12 months minimum, do the work, you'll get a return on investment guaranteed on your bottom line. Otherwise, I have to give you back the difference. In any of those guarantees, ladies and gentlemen, how many times have I ever paid out on any of them? Absolutely zero. And I don't say that in a flippant way. That's not me. What I'm saying it is in a confident way that I know this works. If you apply yourself, there's another correlation, you get results. I'm here, I'll make sure you get the results, but you have to realize you have to do the work. So I'm making it as risk-free as I possibly can. No contract, guaranteed return on investment. You still might be thinking, I can't afford it. Well, let me ask you, how long can you afford not to do something, whatever something may be? Some quotes, folks, some quotes that may strike a chord with you. There's some fantastically talented people that have achieved fantastic successes that are on this call today. But if you're one of those people that doesn't want to go to your grave, not having fulfilled your potential, your full potential that you were born with, then you need somebody with you to get that extra bit out of you, okay? Jim Rohn, a tremendous mentor of mine, unfortunately passed away a few years ago, never wish your life were easier, wish that you were better, and work harder on yourself than you do on your job. For me, that's the embodiment of B times do equals have, because it's about you. Remember, I don't coach businesses, I coach human beings that run businesses. And this other really famous guy said that you can bitch and moan as much as you like, you can want to blame everyone and everything else, but ultimately when it's all said and done, you've got to get back above that line. You've got to get out your pity party. You've got to get back above that line and realize it's all down to you. You see, this one statement has fundamentally changed the course of my life. For things to change, first I must change. And I mentioned it earlier, just by understanding this concept, just closing your eyes and realizing that you don't even need to know what the answer is. You don't need to know what the answer is, but you need to know it's in here. You need to know that needs to be a step change in here. If you understand that, think about how liberating that is. Think about how much pressure that takes off you to have to try to find the answer from 360 degrees of different solutions. It's already in here. It's already in here. It always was and it always will be. For things to change, first I must change. And this is really simple, but very, very profound. If you change nothing, then nothing changes. I know it sounds obvious, and maybe it's linked to Einstein's theory of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Well, if we're not where we need to be, guys, if we need something else, we've got to change something. We've got to change something. And folks, in this short space of time that I've had today, I hope I've given you value. Please don't be one of those people that waits for the planets to align, because there is no such time. Take action. You have to. You are going to kick yourself. The amount of people that come to me 2 years after coming to one of my sessions and going, I wish I had just listened to you and taken action there and then, because I've just wasted 2 years. It's every single time it happens, okay? It's time to step up, folks. It's time to step up. It's a new world out there. Things are changing. It's not going to be the same as it was before. And are we going to do the same stuff, or are we going to embrace the change that's ahead of us, all of the opportunities that are ahead of us, so that we look back on COVID-19 as a positive, as something that good came out of? Don't suffer in silence, folks. Know that there's people there to help you, okay? And remember, all I've done today is just scratch the surface. So, folks, please remember, there's going to be an email coming out to you with links in there for the recording. All of Billy and Paul's and my details in there as well. Please jump on our social media streams. Please connect with us. We do I do 2 videos a week that go out. We have a blog that also goes out every week, totally free. On our new website, all of the videos I've ever done are on there as well. But please connect with us. And if you've enjoyed this, please comment on it. All of our social media streams are in the email that Angela will send you with a link in it. Please don't also forget, I'm holding you accountable now, because that's what coaching is. 100% participation means I expect you to fill in the Survey Monkey and tell us what it is that we can do to improve and what you've taken from the session. And after we open up the Q&A, which we're going to do next, if you're interested in coaching, I want you to stay on the call. I want you to stay on the call, and I'll answer any questions you may have. Actually, sorry, you're going to throw those questions in now as well to the Q&A. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your participation. I hope you had value. What we're going to do now is we're going to unmute myself, Paul and Billy, and then what I want is, if anyone has any questions, I want you to start typing them into the chat box. So guys, any questions you may have from anything you've seen, let's start putting it into the chat box. And what I'm also going to do at the same time is reassume the host duties from Angela, so that I can see what these questions are. So, oh, okay, I'm the host now anyway. Okay, there we go then. So let me just